All right. Snip this.
I'm off. It was off.
Okay, we're gonna test again here. I think we're okay so far. All right, hi, everybody. We're testing out some new audio equipment here in City Hall, so bear with us. And this should also fix our problem with losing the call at 180 minutes. So let's cross our fingers and hope it works. So good evening, I guess, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday, November 4th council meeting. It's kind of odd getting here together on a Thursday night. So per Governor Inslee's order 20-28-152 regarding the OPMA remains in effect. It requires public hearings to be held remotely, with the option of also holding an in-person component to a public meeting or hearing if certain conditions are met. At the present time, the City of Liberty Lake has determined not to hold an in-person component to a public meeting or hearing. So I will go ahead and do a quick roll call. I fix my screen here so I can see everybody again. All right, so we'll do a roll call of the council and staff real quick. So Councilmember Follier.
Yes, here.
You guys are nice and loud. This is awesome. And if you guys are having trouble hearing us, shoot a note in the chat to Todd, who's managing the meeting. Mayor Pro Tem Kennedy.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia.
Present.
All right, and let me just look through here, make sure I'm not missing anybody. So we do have council members Severs and Dunn are out on family business, and I know Councilmember Langford is having some technical difficulties. He's on the road, so when we get to the main meeting and we do excusals, we will most likely be excusing him as well. So we've got the four of us tonight, and our workshop discussion tonight is a start through the 2022 budget. So typically in the past, what we've done with this is just go through page by page, answer questions. And typically we start with going through, we don't go through all the written words and the processes and stuff. We pretty much jump right into the meat of it with the general fund. So Mayor Pro Tem, if you're okay with starting with the general fund and everybody else, or is there anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the general fund starts on page 38. And I do apologize to the public. We don't have this up on the screen because you wouldn't be able to read it very well. It's very small. So we'll just continue through and we'll just go page by page. And council members, when you have a question, just raise your hand and we can go over each one. So I'll just wait until you guys can let me know that you're on page 38.
And then just to jump in, Mayor, the budget is available on the website for anybody that does want to hop on there and grab that. So
Very true. Is it on the front page, Kyle? It wasn't when I looked last time, but if you search on 2022 budget, it does come up.
I'm going to go hunt that down right now.
Okay, great. So Mayor Pro Tem, you there?
I'm on 38. I
Okay.
was looking at the budget summary beforehand. I wonder if any council members have any questions on that.
Well, I guess we could start there, but I think it's if we get into the details, the questions for the summary might be answered in the end.
Yeah, my recommendation would be for consideration of the council that because we just have 4 here now, that hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have a full, all 6 or at least 7 individuals, and we maybe get into more of the detail. It meets with the council's approval.
All right, so I guess we go ahead and start with page 38. Does anybody have any questions? Now, as we make our way through this, for those of you who haven't been through too many of these, and those of you who haven't been through them at all, what you'll find is a summary followed by a page or two of the line item detail in the budget. So any questions you have on a summary page, more than likely the questions may be answered on the details. So is there anything on page 38 that anybody has any questions about? Go ahead, Councilmember Kurtz.
I think my just first question was about the $10,000 for council advisory and what that is. I think I just need to be reminded because I think you guys probably told me last year.
Yeah, that's been in there for many years running. That's a money that we set aside each year in case the council needs their own legal counsel.
Okay. All right.
That's fair.
Go ahead, Mayor. And you know, since there's only 4 of us here, unless it starts to be a problem, at least during this workshop, just go ahead and speak up, if that's okay. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can give some clarification for the council, is that probably about 4 or 5 years ago, that originally that was a $25,000 figure. And then it was reduced down for the last year or two to the 10,000. We never got into the point that we needed that, but it was decided upon the 10,000 was a good number. And if we needed more, we could always go back for budget adjustment.
And you'll see that detail on page 39.
I did have one other question about the election costs and why there's no allocation for it this year or no proposal for it.
Getting there, so we are. There are, so under professional services, where it says election costs and legal ads, you look at page 39. Fund, line number 511-604100. There's $20,000 that was appropriated in 2021. We only had to spend 2,700 to date. And then we basically put in 20,000 each year to cover any election costs that we might incur.
Okay.
Andy,
I was
I
looking
think-
at the line that had the zeros on it. So
Yeah,
that's
we have an old line item there that.
Okay,
we'll
perfect.
probably get rid of.
all right.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of that. Some years there will be a bars code or something, and then they change it. So sometimes we have to kind of follow the bouncing ball as bars codes change. So
And I
it's
think
just
I figured that out a little bit as we got further into the binder, but this was like the first page and that was one of my questions. So sorry about that.
No
I do
worries.
see that now.
all right. Go ahead, Councilmember Foyer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If I could back up just to page 35 on the revenue chart. I guess my question maybe is for Kyle. In that pie chart, is it reflective of the ARP monies?
No, this is just the general fund and street operations only. So ARP is a separate, what we call a managerial fund. So we keep that separate from the general fund and the streets operations.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thanks for going back to 35. I got a question. I had a notation that Kyle, this came up before in the pie chart. Where is the revenue from the golf course?
So with these, so with the pie charts, they represent our major operations costs. So the golf operations is an enterprise fund. So we keep those funds separate. We do not include those in the pie chart that you see. These pie charts are focused on the operations for general fund and street operations.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
sorry, Annie.
Go ahead.
So not to jump into the 7 o'clock, but a question related is, as I look at the 6-year forecast, it looks like the ARP funds are included in that forecast. Is that true?
They are not, no. So what you'll see in like intergovernmental revenues is like a lift reimbursement that offsets a lot of that capital cost.
Okay,
And so ARP funds are not included in that.
thank you.
So if we don't have any more back on 35 that we jump back to, we can get back to 38 and 39. So do you have any questions on the detail behind the first piece of the legislative piece of the general fund? Any questions on page 39 with the detail?
One other question, under the furniture and computer, does that include chairs? The new chairs for the council?
Sure does.
If not, can we add some money there?
They're still working on that for this year, so.
Okay.
With a big red bow on it for you before the end of the year.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
You beat Phil to
I
that
love
one.
it, I love it.
All right, any other questions on page 39, any of the detail? Okay, not hearing any, and just to touch on, and Kyle, I'll actually let you answer. I know the salary commission met on Monday. They have a recommendation, but there has to be a public hearing. Can you walk through that process? Because there are some assumptions made in this budget based on preliminary discussions with the salary commission.
Yeah, so the salary commission met back on Monday and they spent some time reviewing the council and mayor questionnaire and spent some time reviewing the market data of similar entities. And so the preliminary proposal, it is not finalized, it is a proposal at this time, is that they're going to set the mayor's salary at $2,500 a month. And they're proposing to set the council salary at $750 a month. And so they have a public hearing that is set for 5 p.m. incidentally, right before our next council meeting. Wanted to get out in front so we can actually finalize if they are ready to make that final recommendation to insert into the budget. And so we did make some assumptions. So that's a 3% increase for council. It's I think it's in between a 10 and 11% increase for the mayor. The decision was purely based on what they saw in the market data. And so that they will look to finalize right before our next meeting. And then we have accounted for a 5% increase. And so we got pretty close. So I don't think we actually need to adjust anything based on our assumptions. So.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, Kyle, I got a question in regards to the data. That the data that was used was 2 years old, if I remember correctly. Has that been upgraded?
Yeah, so the major information that they use is the AWC salary survey, and that gets released every year. So this was 2021 data that we were working with this year. So
we can get a copy of that.
absolutely, yeah. Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great, so if there's no more questions on page 39, 40 is just a summary of the previous page. So then we get into on page 41, we're to the executive section. Again, we have a summary page with the major categories followed by the detail on the next several pages. So there is one note that I want to make. I'm sure you guys did see it. So you will see some things look a little odd. It's because the human resource manager position for this year was under finance. 2022 budget wise right now, it's under the executive funds. So it'll look like some things really increased a lot, but that's just because we moved that position. So, okay, so page 41, anybody have any questions on the summary? Okay. Hearing any, page 42 starts into our detail. Are there any questions on page 42? Okay. Page 43, some additional detail. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not so much a question, but a statement. So for the benefit of the citizens who are watching this also, is that you may see us go through this and maybe there's not a lot of questions and stuff. But what happens generally in our first meeting, such as we're doing, it generally generates a lot of questions from council, of which we tend to pick up in maybe the next meeting. So just because we're silent doesn't mean we're not paying attention.
We also took a lot more time to do the due diligence on getting some of the notes in here, where sometimes in the past, just a couple updates to a note may have answered some of these questions. So I really applaud the staff for the amount of detail that's in there this year. I did have a comment about the line for economic development advertising, the $15,000 set in there for the splash agreement. I haven't, Kyle, if you've seen the numbers, but we are looking at a slight increase for 2022. I don't know when that contract is supposed to come to us, but the splash is also looking at the possibility of either going back to either going every other week or twice a month. So then we would need to talk when that comes up, whether or not we want to participate and in what way in those additional issues, whether we split our spend over the two. But once we get the more firm information and they get closer to a decision on what their distribution is going to be, those will be some conversations that we have coming up.
Perfect.
All right, so if there's no more questions on page 43, 44 is basically just the bottom line of that budget. So we go to page 45, administrative services. You will see an adjustment under accounting technician, went from 0.5 in 21 to 1 in 2022. Kyle, will you just remind everybody what we did with that position when we took it from part-time to full-time actually in 2021?
Correct. Yeah. So that was budgeted in 2021 as a part-time. And then we went through the majority of 2021 with actually that position not being filled. And so there actually wasn't, as you'll recall, there was no net effect on the budget since we had gone so long into 2021 with that being empty that there wasn't any need for a budget adjustment financially. But we did make that hire back in September. And so, so yep, that's why you're seeing that change on there heading into 2022.
Well, thank you. And I don't see Chris here from the golf course, but you'll see an increase in the full-time employees for the golf leads, and that's a, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we got rid of a couple seasonals and we're replacing that with a full-time person, just like you'll see in several other departments as we go through the budget. Okay, so if nobody has any questions on that summary, page 45, we'll go on to the detail.
Actually, I do.
Sure, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where I'm missing this. Kyle, the 27,000 transfer to Parks and Art Fund out of there. Reason for that again?
So they set their budget and they give us their recommendation. And Jen might be able to speak a little bit to this. And so based on that need, my understanding is we make the adjustment in there to transfer it out to the Parks and Arts Fund to fund their operations for the next year.
Yeah,
Yeah, the detail is on 48. You're looking for
48,
that.
yeah. What I'm looking for is the total we're budgeting this year for Parks and Art.
Okay.
Yeah, so the transfer out for 2022 is actually in here at $27,184.
Yeah.
But later on there, the strategic plan for the Parks and Arts Commission is in here to go through.
Yeah, I can look that up on.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's on page, you'll find that on page 48.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on page 45 before we get into the detail? Not seeing any. All right, page 46. So this is mostly what you'll see in here on page 46 are salaries, benefits for treasurer.
And then,
Kyle, if you want-
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask Kyle if you wanted to speak to that 2021 actual number under Social Security, Medicare, and Administrative. It's about middle of the page with a long note, everybody. If you see that,
Yep.
can you just give a little bit of background on that so everybody understands?
Right, so that was, as you'll see in the note, so there was, an error in withholding that we had to front some money on, and so the IRS is behind. We should have receipted that money back already, and so we are just waiting on that. And what we'll do is we will credit that as what it's called a negative expenditure. So we will zero out that line item once that payment comes back to us.
For 2021.
Correct. Yeah, we are still expecting to receive that back in 2020.
It was just odd to me, obviously, the reason I asked about it initially is you look at the history,
Yeah,
around $30,000, going forward, it's $5,000 or $3,000, and all of a sudden we had this big lump in there, so I just want to make sure everybody was understood what was going on with that item. Great. So if there's no, go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is on the 3% COLA and the 5% additional increase on the treasurer?
So that is for our longtime treasurer, Anne Marie. She has been at her top step for 6 years now. And so without any sort of additional increase. And so I went to bat, and me and the mayor made a decision that I think it was past due to propose a bump for that long-term employee.
That's a 5% total, Phil, that includes the 3% COLA, correct, Kyle? It's not 3 plus 5.
It is 3 plus 5. It is a total of
Okay, so
8.
I misunderstood that.
Total of 8%.
Total of 8%, correct.
So I guess I'm curious why we haven't been applying the 3% COLA to that position previously.
So you'll get, so all staff will get a COLA increase. But once you reach your top step, there are other employees that get a step increase plus a COLA increase.
Oh, I see. So she's at the high limit of the pay scale.
Correct.
position.
Correct. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on page 46? Right, not hearing any. Page 47. Anybody?
I don't have a question. I just a comment that I am excited to see funding in there for the Youth Commission and getting that going again. And then also curious about the wellness program. I'm happy to see that in there. I'm just wondering what you guys have planned.
I don't see Heidi with us tonight. Kyle, you want to touch on that?
That's all right. So we have recently started up a staff wellness committee. And so we have monthly meetings to promote, team building activities, wellness. One of the latest ones was, kind of a staff walk where we just spend 20 minutes and we walk around and like a local trail. And it's all geared towards obviously camaraderie, stuff like that. There's also a different aspect. So our insurance company gives us a 2% discount if we can show them the steps that it takes to that we are involved in these wellness programs and we are actively engaging our staff in these wellness activities. And so
Okay.
the twofold benefit there. So
Good.
But yeah, it's been dormant for quite a while. Obviously, we just hired a HR manager earlier or last year. And so, yeah, so this activity was obviously part of, getting that up and running. So.
Nice.
Councilman Foley.
Mayor, on that, I had that item highlighted as well. Not questioning the program or anything, that sounds great. But we have it in two separate line items, and I wonder if it makes better sense to combine them into one. Because it's the very last line item, 41, and you also have it for 2,000, and you also have it on line 31 for 4,000. So I'm was trying to understand what each one does and why is it not combined?
So you'll see one of them is for supplies and the other is for professional services. So Kyle, I'm going to go through the.
Yeah, so the state auditor requires us to separate out what the actual purchases are. And so if we have supplies, let's say we're doing a wellness event where we are procuring supplies. So one of the ideas was doing like a tie-dye event. So we'd go out and buy t-shirts with the Liberty Lake logo on it and have a tie-dyeing event. If we wanted to bring someone in or an outside entity to maybe have a information session on wellness activities or things of that nature, that would be coded under professional services. So honestly, Phil, you're probably right. We could combine them, but it's this thing where we got to keep them separate. So,
All right, thank you.
yeah.
The auditors need to have a reason to exist. So there you go. All right, there's no more questions on page 47. Seeing any, we'll go ahead to 48.
Madam Mayor, my question was about the COVID professional services, and someone remind me what those are?
So we're back on 47, Kyle, about halfway up. So the $161,000 was spending the original funding that we got from the CARES Act.
It was from the CARES Act, yeah, in 2020.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess it's a question for 2020, but it was on page 48, line 40, this is the very first line. It was $85,000.
So that's kind of that same idea, Annie,
Okay.
that Bill had just talked about. You have COVID-19 related supplies, and then you have COVID-19 related professional services. And so that was all
Okay,
the reasoning for separating those out.
okay.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. My question is on line 41, the 80,000 for the to react to the network assessment. It's a $40,000 bump, well, $32,000 bump. Are we feeling pretty good about that number, or we are just shooting in the dark, or?
We're aiming.
Basically, Phil, that number comes from the stuff that you guys approved a meeting or two ago for the managed services and everything. So there's a little bit of a buffer in there. I think what you guys signed up for, Kyle, correct me if my figures are wrong, came in about 70. Then we have a little bit of a buffer there in case other needs come up.
That's correct. And as these, and I know we've been talking about this forever, they're going to continue to evolve. But as these, what they call interim final rules for the ARP funding evolve, we may be able to, if council chooses, so we may be able to code some of these to that fund instead of this line item. So, but we're operating under the assumption that we can't right now. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions on page 48? Obviously, we've got the $2 million in there from general fund for the cash, the proposed cash portion of the trailhead project. See any more questions on that? 49 is a summary. 50 is a summary. So then we get into legal services. It's only on page 51. We have a contract right now with Sean, obviously, and so that's based on the contracted price. And I believe we will be up for renegotiation for 2023, if I remember correctly. Are you looking? You look like you're looking, Kyle.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I wasn't sure if you were looking to confirm, but I'm pretty sure we're up for renegotiation for the next budget season.
My apologies. I will verify that.
So that's really, that's a contracted amount.
Yes.
52 then, general government services. Again, we've got the summary page with scraps. We have a contract with them. Can't remember how long the current contract goes through, but they base that on the numbers of based on service or percentage of services out of the relay. Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Madam Mayor. If we can go back to 51 on the legal services, do those legal services include any funding where we would have an alternate counsel available when our counsel is not? Is that included in that? And if not, where is that included? Where would we look for that, please?
I believe it's included, but I do see the city attorney dialed in. Sean, if you can confirm, I'm pretty sure the contract covers if you are out of town and somebody from your firm is filling in, that's already covered as part of the contract.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Just wanted clarification.
And I will mention that we do engage outside legal counsel when it comes to the PD contract, which we'll be getting into late 2022. So that shows up on a separate line.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to general fund, page 52, scraps, pollution control. Is there any questions on the summary page for 52? Not seeing any, then we can dive into the details on page 53. Are there any questions?
I'm sorry, Mayor, can I
Yes.
back up? I just thought of my note.
Sure.
Down under capital and other operating funds, the 19,000 to library capital.
Mhm.
What was the 19?
Kyle, do you want to address the 19,000 to the library capital fund? I know we had appropriated it in 2021, but we did not move it over. We actually hadn't moved anything over there since 2018.
Right. So,
I guess my question is by chance, I just happen to think of that number. The 19,000, is that the approximate amount that we had 60,000 allocated
that's,
for the assessment, and we use about 32, 31? Is that the difference?
that's my recollection. I'll have to dive back in and find out. I know, yeah, it came from somewhere, but I gotta double check and see where that came from.
Okay, great, thank you.
So let's make this our first mayor's budget question.
Perfect. Okay.
So we can document the question and come back at the next meeting with the answer.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, page 53. And in case you guys are wondering, when you see AMG, that's Anne Marie's initials, just so you know what that stands for.
What is that?
When you, in some of the notes, it has Anne
Right.
Marie's initials. It took me I always think of Anne Marie as one word. So I think of her as AG, not AMG. So I kept looking at these notes thinking, what is this? And it finally dawned on me. So learn from my mistakes. Okay, we got, this is again, a lot of payroll things on here as well. Underground utility fund. Now we had been putting $25,000 a year into the underground utility fund. We didn't obviously in 20 and 21. But we have it appropriated still for 2021 due to COVID. So I guess there's really two questions there. Kyle, I'm assuming that if the council would like to take an action before the end of the year to move those funds that are appropriated for 2021, we can. And then we have the 2022 money in there as well. So
Correct.
I'll take that as a note, and we can bring that back to the council a little bit later on, whether or not we want to go ahead and move that money over. Wait a second, I take this note. All right, anybody else have anything on page 53? Bless you, Jen. All right, 54, that's another summary page, then we get to 56. This gets into the PD, our administrative staff. So we are looking at moving our part-time person into full-time. So you'll see that bump in the salaries and wages and the corresponding increases with everything else that comes with salaries. And then we have the addition of the two new officers to the PB. And I know Chief's on here, if you guys have any questions about anything that's in here for the PB. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've had several citizens over a period of time ask us questions. Would we, because the public safety is so critical to all of us, when we look at the budget, is how much comes into play of the level of crime that we have for responses, drunk drivers, things of that sort there? How much does that come into play when we make our decisions to increase the officers and also cars or anything like that?
Mayor Pro Tem, that is a great consideration, actually. The caseload and workload of each officer, and also our statistics for the year. Number of calls that we have, the time of day is also included as far as caseload and workloads. One of the reasons why we are restructuring our shifts and also implementing a power shift to help assist handle calls during those times where the call loads are a little higher. So we do consider that, yes.
Very good, thank you.
Chief, since we have you and you're off mute, can you give us just a high level walkthrough of the changes that you do want to make with regards to the lieutenant position, the additional detective and such?
Of course. I'll start with our administrative staff. The workload of our administrative staff has increased tremendously. When we talk about records requests, records retention issues, and also just things that they do for us up front. Our workload has increased tremendously. And so to move one of our part-time records, administrative assistants to full-time would help us tremendously. Moving on to our detectives. Our detective, his caseload is really, really, really high. One of the things I did when Detective Ray Bourgeois retired is I had an exit interview with him. And one of the first things he told me is, you're going to need another detective. And within this, my first year here, and also with consulting with our current detective, I can see that. He's unable to follow up and provide the service that the citizens need and follow up on a lot of the cases that come across his desk. So he has to kind of pick and choose what he's able to follow up on. And unfortunately, there are cases and some reports that people file that will never get followed up on just because he doesn't have the time. Now, going along with that, talking about caseload and workload, having one detective is dangerous. We are one critical and major incident away from tying up a detective for months. And that means he would have to neglect all of his other cases for 2, 3, 4 months or more, and these cases are going to continue to come in. Crime is going to continue to happen. People are going to continue to make reports, and they're going to request that their reports are followed up on for some resolution. So adding another detective will not only help us with the caseload that we're receiving now, but also serve as a little insurance for us in the event that we have a major incident. We have another detective that can kind of, number one, assist with that major incident. Number two, take the burden off of the detective that's primary on that major incident by following up on those cases that are continuing to come in. Moving on to the lieutenant's position, creating a lieutenant's position is about two things. It's about oversight and accountability. There are, with us growing as an agency and our manpower increasing, our span of control as supervisors, as sergeants has increased, and holding or being able to make sure that from an internal affairs standpoint, we're able to manage and lead and supervise each one of those officers effectively is really important. And also taking into consideration if something ever happened to me, having a second in control that can step in and do the things that I'm doing now. So that's really important. And also lastly, the 2 additional officer positions, we're hurting right now. We have, there's nights that we have one officer working nights. Sometimes we have one officer on patrol working days. It's almost impossible to cover calls with one officer, and we depend on the Valley and the Sheriff's Office, unincorporated deputies for assistance quite often. To me, that is a great officer safety issue, placing an officer in the city by him or herself at night, and being able to add that additional officer to our schedule will help us greatly. And of course, that second officer will be to backfill the detective promotion, but adding manpower will help us a lot.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem, and then Councilmember Kurtz.
I'm sorry, let Councilman Kurtz go first.
Go ahead, Councilmember Kurtz.
I just had a question for Chief or for Kyle. I just see one detective on here, and there's one currently. Are you looking at adding a detective? That's what I heard him say, but.
Great catch, Councilmember Kurtz. So yeah, that was a typo on our end. So
Okay.
that is going to read 2.
Okay.
Well, we're only adding a detective and adding a lieutenant, so I think the priority is kind of confusing.
Yeah, and so and what it looks like is you're removing an officer because you're potentially promoting an officer
Okay.
to a detective, and so you got some movement within the department there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, if you could expand slightly on this for the benefit of the citizens who are with us this evening. You pointed out before that we're very fortunate that we've never been involved in a shooting or something like that, which inevitably probably would happen. And what would happen to the officer or anybody who's involved in that? You could touch on base on that individual basically would be tied up for a long period of time, correct?
That's a great question, Mayor Pro Tem. If we had an officer involved shooting, we're talking about losing at least one officer. Now, there's multiple officers involved in that shooting. We could potentially lose those officers, but we're going to lose them for a minimum of 3 weeks. That's guaranteed. The other variables, the factors that come in is what happens to that officer in 3 weeks, and are they ready to return to work? We've been fortunate, and I hold my breath every night that doesn't happen, because that is going to decimate our staffing if we have multiple officers involved in a critical incident. And one of the things that we have to think about is we're sandwiched between metropolitan areas: Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, Spokane Valley. So not only do we have to worry about the potential of things happening within the city, but we have to worry about some of those spillover incidents coming into the city, pursuits and those types of things coming into the city, and the potential for those incidents to go terribly wrong. So there's a lot to consider there. Again, with our current staffing, we kind of hold our breath that we don't have that. We kind of saw a little bit of that this summer with FMLA, and we're not even talking about critical incidents. We're talking about people that are out, for personal reasons. And that really hurt us this summer. And the amount of overtime that we used, we pretty much exhausted our overtime budget for last year. For this year, because of family medical leave. If we ever have a critical incident, we'll see a similar effect. We'll have issues filling shifts. There'll be a ton of overtime, and we're going to lose officers for weeks, if not months.
Go ahead, and then Councilmember Garcia has a question.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate you touching base on it. One other thing is that earlier in the year, as everybody will recall, is that we signed an agreement where we would allow some officers to patrol speeding and what have you up at Legacy Ridge. So that really has generated over a period of time, or at least for me, quite a few questions from citizens. And I guess one of them would come up is that somebody asked me this earlier, where we're including 3 new police vehicles and stuff. Is there any impact of having to put in additional officers? That is any way we're taking vehicles or anything away from the city with this contract that we're allowing for Legacy Ridge?
No, it hasn't affected our fleet at all. I don't see it affecting our fleet at all, especially since it's within the city limits. The mileage is low. It's a pretty small area. And so it really hasn't impacted us at all when it comes to our fleet.
Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia, I know you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, can you further clarify how the crime check, when individuals contact, we have a new system, but when individuals contact the police department for help, they normally get crime check. Most of them will know to call crime check. And as we have all come to find out, crime check doesn't always notify the Liberty Lake department right away. And sometimes weeks later, individuals in the community feel that service may not be of great service to us. Is there a way, or have you already structured it and I missed it? Is there a way to, and Madam Mayor and City Council members in particular, that we put on some sort of call provision that the calls actually come in to Liberty Lake, a Liberty Lake officer answers the call, takes the recommended information, and then follows through. There are many people that are saying that they will call and they don't see anyone until the next day or the day after. And no fault of our department, but is there something that can be put in place so that the calls actually are routed to a Liberty Lake officer? If that means we have to put out more outlay in order to hire another officer. Crime is happening, in fact, in the county region off of Liberty Drive. That whole section of the county region the other evening had a break-in. Almost every other house had a break-in, and they escaped through the city of Liberty Lake proper. where they went unnoticed and unrecognized, maybe out of one of our only 2 exits out of the city. But is there a way that we can look at adding an officer or some sort of 911 person out here in Liberty Lake to take those calls?
Okay, well, I guess I can answer that question by letting you know how the process works with Crime Check. And you kind of spoiled my presentation at 7 o'clock as well, because we have a new service available, but we'll get to that at 7 o'clock. Yeah, no, that's okay. So that is one of the issues. That's one of our investigator detective issues. So when people file Crime Check reports, now there's going to be 2 types, I believe. You're going to have those ones where people want contact. So they're calling and they want contact with an officer. Now, we have a standard throughout the county. We have standardized, as law enforcement leaders, we have standardized a system of which our SHREC operators, the 911 operators and Crime Check, how they triage calls and how they dispatch officers. Now, that is not just the Liberty Lake thing. That is a countywide agreement with all chiefs and the sheriff and everyone else. So those 911 operators are operating off of that, the system that we created as far as triaging calls and dispatching officers. Now, for those people that want file a report on Crime Check and want some sort of follow-up, they want contact by a detective, for instance, they have their vehicle broken into and they tell the Crime Check operator, we have ring video of the suspect. And they want contact and to have someone pick up that video and have some follow-up. Those Crime Check reports, we're actually able to look up, and our detective will look those up and determine whether or not he's going to follow up. He's going to contact those people. Now, here's the issue. We have one detective, and there are hundreds upon hundreds of Crime Check reports. You wouldn't believe the number of Crime Check reports we get. Everything from harassment, just minor things, to of course, the vehicle prowls, the vehicle break-ins, garage burglaries, some of those other things. So there are a ton of Crime Check reports that officer has to follow up on top of the patrol reports, especially the felonies that are coming in that he has to follow up on, and those felonies take precedence. So adding another detective, I think, will help curb that issue with us being able to contact people in a timely manner and letting them know whether or not we're going to follow up on that report. My advice would be if a citizen makes a Crime Check report and they don't hear anything within you have to be reasonable. You have to give us a couple of days, a week or so to get through those reports and read those and determine whether or not we're going to follow up on. But if they haven't heard anything within a week, call us and say, hey, my vehicle was broken into. This is the incident number that the Crime Check operator supplied me. Can I speak with the detective to see if this is going to be followed up on? Because sometimes they don't give all the information to the Crime Check reporter, and they may be able to give some information that may change the status of whether or not we're going to follow up on that case. It would be difficult for us to separate those things and bring something entirely to Liberty Lake. I say the only way that we would probably be able to do that is to mirror Cheney and have our own dispatcher and our own system, which from officer safety standpoint, especially out east, with our population out here and how busy we are, especially in the valley and the east portion of the county, and everything coming in again from Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County. I think there's some issues with that, officer safety issues, and some other issues when the valley and unincorporated Spokane County Sheriff deputies don't know what's going on because they're not on your channel and they're not scanning your channel. I think it would be more beneficial for us to stay where we're at now. But again, adding a detective will help that. And one of the other things that we thought about doing is for some of those misdemeanors, allowing or designating one of our officers kind of maybe to do the misdemeanor follow-up. on some of those, one of our officers or two, because we are getting inundated right now with crime check reports. And I think now that we have online reporting, not spoiling my 7 o'clock again, we're probably going to see an increase in the number of reports because the ease of reporting now is it's, you know, it's gotten better now that we have the citizens will have the ability to file reports online.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilman Kurtz.
Chief, I had a question. A few months ago, you talked a little bit about your goal to have a more support for traffic. I think this came out of the discussion about the contract for Legacy Ridge, and that you didn't have the resources at the time to have a full people who really work on, I think, traffic and some other things in the community. And I wanted to ask if the proposal that's in here today allows you that ability to focus on that as well.
Not specifically viewed within the budget here, but one of the things that we do have is we have a traffic officer now. One of the things we're waiting on is the hire of the new officer. It is JT Isaac. He is former Washington State Patrol. This past summer, we actually sent him to the traffic tech school, which means that he can investigate serious or fatal collisions that occur within the city. So one of our goals is to have that independence. If we do have a fatality, accident, or serious injury accident within the city, to have our investigators be able to investigate that and not outsource that to the sheriff's office. Maybe ask them for assistance because, of course, right now we don't have some of that equipment that we need, but in the future, that's one of the things that we're working on, actually working on with the Washington State Patrol to kind of figure out what we need, how much it costs, and get the training on that in the future. But we do have an officer right now that will be designated our traffic officer. And believe me, he loves running traffic, being an ex-Washington State Patrol trooper.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, Councilmember Foyer, and then I'm just watching the clock. So Councilmember Foyer, after your question and then the answer, then we will break before the next meeting.
Okay, yes, Mayor. I have a lot of questions, so I'll just start with the easy ones. How about that? So I guess I asked this question last year of all the department heads. I expect the answer is yes, but you were involved in the discussions of coming up with the upcoming budget year numbers, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. My next question is for Kyle. No different than my last question from last year. Looking at the actual expenses as of when this was published, can you give me the date of when the actual 21 actual expenses are as of?
September 30th. So you're right at the 75% mark.
So that's my question. We still have, it looks like from actual to appropriated 811,000. Is that going to get us through the next to the end of the year?
Is that for PD?
Yes. So I'm looking at.
Yes, I can tell you why. If you look at, and it's going to be a little different than what I have in my personal book, so give me a second. For this year, because of COVID, our court services and our jail services are, you see those numbers there for our actual?
Mm-hmm.
Those are not going to exceed or even come close. So just those alone will give us a little bit of a gap there in savings. And we were just looking at this today.
So the reason for my question, Chief, is.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The reason for my question is it seems like the purpose of a budget is so you can reflect back on previous years and make sure we're budgeting properly, whether it be to the plus or to the minus. So my question, same as last year, is there any leftover funds to be rolled over from 21 budget to the 22 budget? And if so, how much? And if it's not enough worth talking about, then just say that.
Kyle, do you want to answer that? Because it's more, Phil, about we end the end of the year and then we start a new budget beginning of next year.
Right. So yeah, try to not think of it as a rollover. Try to think of it as more of a reset.
Understand, but those funds, unused funds, are the part of the reason why we have a $4 million surplus. So I'm just asking, I don't mind having a surplus. That's great, that's good budgeting, but if we're gonna have a $400,000 surplus, then we could appropriate those funds next year.
Yeah, that case can be made if, because we're obviously, and what this will come up to your point, Phil, at the public hearing, kind of where our current position is. And so, yep, absolutely. I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill, we've got like 5 minutes to next meeting. Do you want to try to get your next questions in, or do you want to wait until the next meeting?
We'll wait till the next round. Thank you.
We'll make sure we start with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and end the workshop. We'll be back here. It is currently 6:56. We will see you back here in 4 minutes. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Todd, what's really happening is that
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Let's make sure we have everybody back on here. Just a moment. Now, and Mayor Pro Tem is on his way.
I'm working on it. 9:30. Where is the 7?
It's the same meeting.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Got it.
Okey dokey. All right, let's wait for you to show up here. Okay. All right, we are back, everybody. Again, welcome to our Thursday City Council meeting. Today's November 4th, 2021. Meeting is being held remotely. Governor Inslee's Order 20-28-152 regarding the OPMA remains in effect. It requires public meetings, hearings to be held remotely with the option of also holding an in-person component to a public meeting or hearing if certain conditions are met. At the present time, the City of Liberty Lake has determined not to hold an in-person component to a public meeting or hearing. So it's the beginning of our regular session. If y'all would stand and join me in the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, thanks for bringing us together here today. Please be with all of our council members as we go through our action items and discussions tonight. And just assure that we are making the right decisions and having right discussions for the betterment of our community. Thank you again for your protection for all of our first responders, as they are the ones who have assured us the freedom to have meetings like this and to express our opinions. In your name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will call the meeting to order here. And I'll do a quick roll call. Councilmember Follier.
Yes. Yes. Here.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia.
Present.
Okay, and let me see, I know, so we do have council members Dunn and Severs are out for family, and I know Councilmember Langford was having difficulties with his technology. So Mayor Pro Tem, we have a motion to excuse the 3.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we excuse the 3 council members that you mentioned.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from Councilmember Garcia to excuse council members Langford, Severs, and Dunn. Do we have any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the excusal, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, any opposed? I see Councilmember Foyer's on mute, so I wasn't sure if he said aye or not before. Okay, he approves. All right, so all 3 members are excused. And now we move on to agenda approval. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the council's consideration this evening. And this came up with the possibility for the council to consider, because we're running 3 council members short, that when we get into workshop discussion, did the council want to consider B, Code of Ethics, to bring that up at our next meeting? Or do we feel that it'd be sufficient to cover all those bases with just the 4 of us?
So is your motion to move that to a future meeting when we have more members? Is that a motion?
I can make a motion, but I think I was first of all bringing it up. But yes, I would make a motion that we move that to our next meeting.
The motion was to postpone workshop B on the Code of Ethics social media policy to the next meeting, when we'll have more council members present. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second by Councilmember Follier. Comments, Councilmember Kurtz.
As far as bringing the social media piece up, I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up when we had this on the agenda, given the level of detail that I'm interested in discussing the social media policy, I'd like to make the suggestion, or was going to make the suggestion of if there's a smaller group that could get together and really kind of dive into the details and bring something back to the council. And I kind of wanted to get everybody's thoughts on that. So this was kind of on my radar, is that maybe a more efficient way to get through the process, because it's, when I look at the code of the rules of procedure and how long it's taken us, I don't know that we want to go through that exercise in the middle of the budget season. So that's my comment, and leave that up to the council to ponder.
So may I suggest this, and Sean, if you need to weigh in on this, so maybe the proposal should be, we keep that item on the agenda and just make that workshop very briefly about your idea, Councilmember Kurtz.
That's certainly fine. I mean, I think the motion right now is to move it.
Right.
But
So
I mean, if you want to do that, that's certainly fine.
So we can take a vote on removing it and moving it, which would be, if you guys will leave it on there for further discussion tonight, it would just vote down the motion. So.
And I could
I
also
mean,
amend.
I'm certainly you could, if you wanted to move it to the next meeting and then just have some further discussion relative to what Annie's talking about, and, you know, having a committee or what have you. I mean, you could certainly do that, and that way you move it off from the agenda tonight when the additional council members are back to potentially the following meeting.
I was just trying to avoid, since we're still under agenda approval, I was just trying to avoid a long discussion while we're approving the agenda, and just have that brief discussion under the workshop about Annie's.
Right.
Annie's
However you want to
statement.
handle it, Mayor.
Right. So I'll go ahead and take a vote on moving it, and then we'll go from there. So all in favor of moving workshop item B to another meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, all in favor and all opposed? So we're moving it off the agenda entirely then.
Yes.
All right, so we have, so was there anybody opposed to moving it off the agenda? Okay, so ayes have it. So we will remove action item, workshop discussion 9B. All right, were there any other requested changes, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I would like to refer back to Councilman Kurtz, that you talked about a brief discussion. Would you like to make a motion that, because we consider it be brief, to put it on the workshop for this evening?
I think, I'm not sure where this would fit in the agenda, honestly. So it would be like a report or an inquiry asking for sort of like an ad hoc during that time to volunteers to be a part of that group if the council desires. I'm not sure the procedure here. So if somebody has a better idea, let me know.
I just have a thought. Can we have that discussion when we have a full council?
Yes. I think what I was looking for is just trying to figure out who would want to volunteer to be on the group to get that work going.
Well, and we have 3 members missing.
Right.
So it's somebody who's missing might want to be part of that group.
Right.
So why don't we'll put it back on for the next meeting, Councilmember Kurtz, so we can get that feedback from the council. Your committee will need to be 3 or less for us, unless you want it to be noticed as a public meeting. So why don't I get with you after the meeting or tomorrow, and maybe we can even arrange for those people to volunteer before the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking, is if an email goes out, that's what I'm looking for.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Therefore, I make a motion that we adopt the adjusted agenda approval for this evening.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right. Motion to approve the amended agenda, and seconded by Councilmember Kurtz. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing or hearing any. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? All right, looks like we have 4 ayes. Agenda is amended and approved. All right, we're up to citizen comments. I've got 2 people on the list right now. First, we have Tom Salver. Just remember, if you want to make a citizen comment, anybody who's joined us, you'll have up to 3 minutes. It'll be on the timer, and just address the council. There will not be replies. If there is a question, we will arrange for that question to be answered at a later time. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
You sure can.
Neighbors and staff and elected officials, thank you very much for your attention. I just want to reflect a little bit that this election is a clear mandate that we're going in the right direction. Liberty Lake Together, which I see in the background of many of you, and I have in the background other than my Liberty Lake hikes here. Liberty Lake Together means to us, those who are at the top of the organizational chart from which everything trickles down, that we, the voters, are going to work together. And that includes neighbors, businesses, and developers. I just want to thank all of you who ran good, clean campaigns, those who won, and congratulate Mayor Kaminskis, new city council members Jamie Baird and Chris Cargill, and very old city council member Mike Kennedy, who really had a tough run this time. I also want to, as I was encouraged on the city webpage today, to welcome new city engineer David Williams and new permit tech Michelle Benton. You're going to be a part of a wonderful team, and I look forward to working with all of you. Also, I highly commend later on in your agenda for the Parks and Arts position that I left a while back. Connie Somas, a good neighbor, an art aficionado, and will be a really good member of that team. Also, a reminder to all of you, I think everybody who's on here has now been told that we're not letting Katie go without having conditions of her release. Kelsey, if you can help me with this and make sure that things get out. I've been sending messages to people, and I do have some really interesting conditions that have come up, some prohibitions and some must-dos. So please get those into me, and we'll embarrass Katie at the appropriate time. And also just a reminder to everybody that wants to participate in what brings more people to Liberty Lake than almost any other event, maybe other than the symphony. And that is that we start setting up for Winter Glow Saturday at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate it. And more on Winter Glow to come. All right, next we have Steve Peterson would like to make a citizen comment. You're up.
Mayor, congratulations on your election. Now the true work truly begins as you vision, plan, and take steps to solve complex issues. Last week, I shared to Kyle and the council some of my thoughts on our 6-year forecast. There are a few glaring omissions in debt service and capital outlay to get a complete picture of 2028 and beyond. The results in the forecast in 2028 show a significant reduction in city cash balances. The 2022 budget also does not reflect the environment of high inflation that is projected by the Federal Reserve. The last period of time that this type of inflation existed was the mid-1970s, which created recession and malaise. In 2010, the 2011 budget had ready projected in the following years, and council's reaction was to create the utility tax. Rumor has it you wanted to reduce or eliminate it. I don't think that is prudent going forward. With those brief comments, Charmaine and I wish you well in your deliberations. As we turn the page on our chapter in our lives, we are focused on family, friends, and our personal goals and activities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, Todd, do we have any other citizen comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, I guess we have wrapped up citizen comments for this period. Remember, we will have another one at the end of the meeting. So if you have any questions or comments at that time, we will take your comments then. All right, announcements, proclamations, special presentations. We have no items listed, but instead of waiting for my mayor's report, I would like to take this time to congratulate and acknowledge Councilmember Garcia's amazing accomplishment of getting her AWC certificate of municipal leadership. I think she beat all of us in her timing. Great work. Really want to congratulate you and thank you for your diligence on that, Councilmember Garcia. I know if you haven't already gotten your certificate, you will be getting it, but I want to make sure the community and the council and the staff all knew about the hard work that we know you put in anyway, but the additional hard work you put in to get that certificate so quickly. Thank you for that. And
Thank
if you
you.
want to comment on that about the process at all, but it's always an interesting process.
Mhm. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. It was something that I wanted to do long before I got into this side of the politics. But of course, regular citizens don't have the opportunity. Perhaps some of what I've learned and many of my colleagues have learned would be of interest to the rest of the population. It would certainly tell them why things are done the way they are and why it is important that they are that way, to follow the law and the rules. I am honored and I thank you for the announcement. I am hopeful that I will be able to continue moving the agenda and moving the work of the people forward. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, so we are on to reports and inquiries. So do we have any city council reports from the last couple of weeks? Or Mayor Pro Tem, anything you want to report on, or anybody else?
No, I just say some of the same usual meetings that I was on the STA the other day. Very long, very interesting. They're debt-free. They're a huge revenue source on it. To try to explain what you can sit through for an hour and a half, I would put everybody to sleep. So thank you.
And that's why we like the fact that you're going.
Yeah, thank you.
We
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Because no one else showed up.
We appreciate your time doing that. So from the mayor's report side, it's been really all about the budget the last few weeks or so. We've been getting in our some applications for our commissions. So we have a little bit later in the meeting, we have the confirmation of Connie for the Parks and Arts Commission. We do have some, we've got somebody from the Library Board of Trustees whose term is at the end of this year, so we will be advertising for that. We will have, as it looks like tonight, we will have at least two planning commissioner spots open up, thanks to newly elected council members Cargill and Freeze Bear, thanks Jamie and Chris. And so we will be getting out a lot of those applications, notices to the public. And I believe there may be some other terms expiring. So Lisa and I are working through a lot of those. Jen and I are working through some for Parks and Arts. So keep an eye out for that. And of course, the Community Engagement Commission, we're still looking for applications for that. We've got a handful at this point. So again, we will be continuing to take those applications and we will obviously be looking to hire our public relations, community engagement, communications person early next year who will be the liaison. So looking forward to getting more public participation through the Community Engagement Commission. City administrator interview timeline, we've been working through that. Heidi and I met today. And applications are still open through Friday. We are already setting the initial phone screen interviews for Wednesday next week with the intent of the following week. I don't have my calendar in front of me now. Here we go. The week of the phone screens next week, panel interviews the week of the 15th, and we'll be reaching out to those people who will be involved with that. Looking at skipping the week of Thanksgiving and then having open house type events the week of the 11/29. So we'll solidify that a little bit more, but just looking forward to getting that process going. We had some really good applicants. Of course, Katie will be involved along the way. And other than that, I will encourage you guys to check out the newly released SpokaneHolidays.com website from Visit Spokane. This is one of the end results of the Visit Spokane Holiday Marketing Committee that I was sitting on, and along with the great website, which Winterglow Liberty Lake has some great presence on the website to drive traffic to Winterglow. The 80-page Inlander Holiday Guide is coming out on Monday. We are on page 46. And again, Liberty Lake's getting a lot of great exposure. Doesn't cost us anything. Winterglow got a quarter-page ad out of it because of my participation on the committee. And so we're looking for some great increased numbers over last year. And if there's any area of businesses that you guys know of that you would like to help advertise the whole marketing campaign, I have access to the graphics for that. So we've got window clings, we've got badges that businesses could add to their websites or their social media. So send them my way if they've got any questions, if they want to participate in that. And as Tom Selberg mentioned, Winterglow major setup day is Saturday at 9 a.m. So hopefully we'll see you all there. I think that's all I've got. So city administrator report, Jen Camp.
Mayor?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Phil.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. If I could just jump in real quick. I just want to say I had a great time this afternoon. We got an invite to check out the training simulator that it was a clear risk, I believe, brought to the police department. That's just some incredible training for those guys. And women, men and women. Great training, great facility. I was really impressed with what they had to offer our police force. Feel like, you know what, we're in really good hands when it comes to their training. So want to shout out to them and say I appreciate all they do in their training. And as a side note, watching the mayor in action, you better watch out.
At least I got my shot off before he did, unlike others.
Yeah.
No, it was a great event, and that is included in our insurance and its annual training that the PD goes through. And I know other council members have had a chance to partake in that. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's important that we get across to the citizens that we didn't wipe out any citizens in this example today, did
It's
we?
all video.
Okay, very good. Thank you. It is a great event. I've done it 2 years ago, and it was outstanding to be able to do that. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Jen. Sorry for that. You're muted somehow. No? Jen, we can't hear you. No? Todd, is there anything we can do to help Jen on her audio?
Just one suggestion, perhaps the chief could start speaking about the first item while Jen gets her audio working.
Sounds good.
Of course, Todd, can you help me out here with the?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yep, we're going to turn it over to the chief.
Go ahead, Chief.
Awesome. Good evening again, Mayor, members of the council, and citizens of Liberty Lake. Tonight, I want to briefly introduce 2 new resources we have for the citizens and businesses of Liberty Lake. Next slide, Todd. The first of these resources I want to introduce is called Report It. Now, using Report It, citizens and businesses can create an account and enter serial numbers, item descriptions, pictures, and scan receipts of valuables. So in the event that these items are lost or stolen, they can be more easily reported. Next slide, Todd. The first step in using this free service is to create an account by registering at reportit.leadsonline.com. Next slide, Todd. On the Report It website, click Create New Account. Next slide. Enter all the required information and submit your registration. Next slide, Todd. Confirm your registration using the email you supplied during the registration process. Next slide. And then you're ready. You're ready to get started. You can add items by clicking the Add tab. Next slide. Now, for any items that you want to add, you just enter all the relevant information, whether it's serial numbers or you want to add receipts or whatever it may be, any other documents related to those, your valuables. And next slide, Todd. After you document your valuables, you can actually print those for your records as part of the reporting process if any of these items are ever lost or stolen. Now, one of the features that I don't have here is if you make a police report and maybe you don't have some of those serial numbers and you need to find some things, you can actually put the incident number for the police report, print that out with the incident number for law enforcement, and actually hand that to law enforcement. Next slide, Todd. Now, the second new resource I'd like to introduce is Crime Check Online Reporting, which went live for Liberty Lake citizens on November the 1st. Next slide, Todd. Crime Check Online Reporting allows citizens within Liberty Lake to file a police report online and print that report immediately. That is an awesome, awesome feature, because if anyone's ever requested a police report, you know, it could take 30, 60, 90 days sometimes, depending on how busy records is. So that is a great feature. You're able to print that police report immediately. To use the Liberty Lake Crime Check Online Reporting, the incident must be must have occurred within the city limits of Liberty Lake, and that excludes I-90. And all incidents filed are reviewed. If a further investigation is needed, the complainant may be contacted. Next slide, Todd. To use Crime Check Online Reporting, you go to the website that you see here. Next slide, Todd. You scroll down until you locate the link that is symbolized with our police patch, Liberty Lake Police Department police patch. You click on that. Next slide, Todd. And then you locate the type of crime that you want to report. Now, the crimes that are eligible to be reported on Crime Check Online Reporting are custodial interference, garage burglaries, harassment reports, lost property, malicious mischief reports, including malicious mischief to vehicles, any supplemental reports that you have for prior crime check reports, thefts from vehicles, trespass reports, and also vehicle prowling reports. After you select the appropriate incident type, you click Start Report. Next slide, Todd. And you create your report. And again, you can print it. Now, with the Liberty Lake Police Department, we were extremely excited to have this feature. This feature has been available for other citizens within the city of Spokane and Spokane County for some while. We advocated for it, and we finally, again, we got access to it, and it went live November the 1st. And I believe that these two new as far as Crime Check Online Reporting, not only Crime Check Online Reporting, but also Report It, going back to that, will be tremendous beneficial resources for our community. So if anyone has any questions, I can answer those. If not, thank you.
Anybody have it? Go ahead, Councilmember Follier.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just have one question on the Record It, Chief. Who has access to that info?
That is your private account. So once you create that account, only you or anyone that you allow to have access via sharing your password has access to that account.
So the intent behind it is to be able to produce it when you need it if something gets taken.
Exactly.
Got it. Thank you.
One place where you can record, again, all of the information that you may need in the event you have valuables lost or stolen. At least you have those serial numbers. You're not scrambling trying to find receipts or anything else with the serial number on your value or in regards to those valuables.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Jen, I think we got you fixed.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me? All right, good. Yeah, so my second item is to congratulate Councilmember Garcia, as did the mayor. So I will echo her congratulations. And I too was impressed at the short amount of time it took her to accomplish such a great honor. On the third note, Parks and Arts appointment, there is an application for your consideration this evening for Connie Somas, as was also mentioned before. She is backfilling that vacant position from Tom Selberg. And Lisa is going to provide an update on MTC zone change and trailhead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. With regard to the Meadowood Technology Campus zone change, just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. So the Planning Commission did have a hearing on October 13th, and they did recommend the approval of the comprehensive plan land use amendment, although it was a split vote. On October 26th, the hearing examiner held a hearing on the zone change portion of it. And I wanted to give you an update on the schedule and timeline for it. So right now, the hearing examiner is pretty backlogged on his decisions. And so we are not anticipating getting a decision until December 6th. What that would mean is that I could not notice the hearing until we had the hearing examiner's recommendation. And so the earliest we could have that hearing would be the December 21st meeting. Problem is that we're going to have a new council. And so we don't want to have the hearing heard by one council and the decision made by a different council. So I've been in contact with Sean Bouts as well as the applicant, and everybody is comfortable with this, the delaying the scheduling of the MTC hearing before City Council until January. And the intent is that we would have the hearing on one day, and the following day we would then bring back ordinances for council to make a decision. So the hearing and deliberation, but the ordinances would come at a later date. And one of the questions that came up is that we have two council members who actually heard the case before the Planning Commission. So Sean and I discussed the matter as it relates to whether or not they would need to recuse themselves. And again, as long as the council members who participated in the Planning Commission hearing declare that they were involved in that hearing and can declare that they are impartial and will base their decisions on the record. It's going to be an expanded record from what they heard at Planning Commission, obviously, because there'll be the results of the hearing examiner's recommendation also. And so that will not be a non-issue for future council member Baird and future council member Cargill, provided they can make that declare that their prior involvement at the beginning of the hearing. So that's the status on MTC. I also wanted to briefly cover the status of Trailhead. We did receive 5 very qualified proposals for design build teams. And we did a consensus scoring of those teams with a committee that included Jonathan Miller with OAC, who was facilitating the meeting, Katie Allen, Mayor Kaminskis, Phil Foyer, Chris Johnston, myself, Mike Kennedy, and DG Garcia. And so we did, and it was determined that while there was a differential in scoring between the 5, they were all very close in the pack. And as a result, it was determined that we will be interviewing all 5 of the teams. The interviews will happen on November 9th. And based upon those interviews, the review team will then hopefully shortlist those down to 2 or 3 candidates who will then be providing a cost proposal. And so that's where we are in the process. And I stand for any questions.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Sorry about that. My question was about the Meadowood Technology Center. And when will the video of the Planning Commission be posted so we can review that if we wanted to?
There is no video of the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And it's not, it would not also not be appropriate for council to the council needs to make a decision based upon the record of the hearing. So, but there is no video.
Councilmember Foyer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Lisa, I maybe I misheard you, but I thought you said that there was a couple council members that attended the hearing examiners meeting and that would disqualify them.
No, so that's not, and I'm going to defer to Sean on this, but I do want to make it clear. We had 2 Planning Commission members who were part of the Planning Commission hearing who have now been elected to the position of City Council.
Okay, then I misunderstood. I thought you said they were part of the hearing examiner meeting. Yeah.
No, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I do, yeah, thank you. Lisa, this is interesting on the MTC zone change. I would assume we've probably never had this come up before in a situation like this, where we have 2 members who were in every one of those meetings, discussed, had all this information, and now they're going to be on the council in a short period of time where they'll be making a decision on this. I know that our attorney had sent out cautionary, not restricting, but cautionary for any council member and stuff to get too involved in that. Certainly not to make any comments, certainly not to get involved in any way or have any discussion. Quite honestly, it seems to me that there is a conflict of interest there. I think it's probably a gray enough area that here we have 2 council members who were on that, were involved in every single discussion, gave their opinions, their vote, and now they're going to be 2 votes that will vote on this. So I think that what that does, it puts these 2 individuals in a position where they're much more knowledgeable than the rest of the council. Thank you.
Again, I would defer to Sean on that, but I will point out that the Planning Commission hearing only focused on the comprehensive plan land use amendment. That's all the Planning Commission made a recommendation on. It did not make a recommendation with regard to the zone change.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. This is a difficult statement, but I think it should be noted because there are questions surrounding what the new council members will bring to the table in the discussion and deliberations when we bring it back to the council after it's gone to the hearing examiner, of which the council does not sit in the hearing examiners during the hearing examiners deliberation over their decision. The planning commissioners are not there at that time. So would it be prudent for the council not to put 2 new members of the council in a position of compromise, i.e. the general public may not understand, regardless of how the decision will land, the general public may not understand the input that may come from members who are actually there deliberating, regardless of what part of the decision-making they were in, but they deliberated and they did vote. The perception is there. And although they're not financially being paid anything and thus and so, the perception for compromise could be there. Would we want to place those 2 individuals in that position when we would still rightfully have enough council members there to make the decision. There's one thing in putting someone in, I'll just call it harm's way, for a reason that we actually need them to be there, but to compromise, I think it would, I don't look at it as being prudent, and I don't look at it as in their best interest, because they still need to not appear biased in any way. When individuals, Member Kurtz talked about a video, maybe that's why we should have videos for all the boards and commissions. But we don't want to compromise those two members. And at the same time, we want it to be, to have the integrity of the process. And since there would be 5 other members to deliberate over that, I frankly don't find it prudent to have them compromise themselves in that way, because no matter how it shakes out, there's someone in the community, there are some people on whatever side was determined or is determined that will probably see this as a compromise. And there's enough of that going on in other areas. I would ask the city attorney to weigh in, although I did hear that you said he finds that it's not, but it could go either way. He could advise that it would be in the best interest of the city that they not do it, or he could advise they can do it. So he's given options where it might be prudent to give a concrete decision. Anybody want to answer that, Mr. Bouts?
Yes.
Mayor, would you like me to address it?
Yes, please.
First of all, I think it's a little premature to make any kind of decisions at this point. I think the conversation that I had with Lisa was first with regard to the hearing examiner making a decision. The hearing examiner set a schedule that they believe can be made, but there are a number of decisions that are also needing to be decided outside of Liberty Lake. And so whether or not the hearing examiner can meet that schedule, I think is still a question. I think Lisa and I aren't sure that that was going to occur. So whether or not we could even get to it procedurally by the end of the year, we would have to wait for that decision. If the hearing examiner didn't make the decision till the end of the year, timing wise, we would not be able to do it until the beginning of next year anyway. So that was process in trying to decide. It would probably be better to make sure that we weren't pushing up against any deadlines or receiving a decision from the hearing examiner to push it into 2022. With regard to the new council members in this particular situation, and I want to be careful that we don't get in a situation where the new council members are commenting at this time or talking about the situation, because this is a quasi judicial matter that is decided on the record. And as Mr. Kennedy talked about, I caution to make sure that people aren't getting, and council members aren't getting involved outside of the record that is going to be put before the council. As with any council member on a particular decision that is being made, disclosure and that individual council member's ability to be fair and impartial is a decision of the council member as well. So from the standpoint of those new council members, it will need to be addressed at the time that it comes before the council, and those individual council members' ability to be fair and impartial. So I think before we can make any kind of decisions, we would have to be at that situation where those council members could address whether or not they believe they could be fair and impartial. I've not had conversations with them. This was just a conversation between Lisa and myself to determine process for moving forward and what it may look like.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, too. Councilmember Kurtz, you have a question.
I did have a question, and I misspoke when I asked Lisa about a video earlier. I meant the minutes from the October 13th meeting. I was wanting to look at those at some point.
So the minutes will be in the draft minutes, as well as the findings, conclusions, and recommendation will be in the council packet that goes out tomorrow and is posted on the website. However, those do not become final until the Planning Commission ratifies them. So those will be available. The Planning Commission meets next Wednesday. And after next Wednesday, that information will be available. And that is, by the way, part of the record that then goes to City Council as part of the decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there's no more questions for Lisa on Meadowwood Tech or Trailhead. Go ahead and the next one, Jen.
All right, so the last thing on my report are events and some reminders of dates. Leaf and Beach drop off this year is at the sewer district over on Harvard. It began November 1st. It will run the entire month and it is open from dawn till dusk. Winter Glow setup begins, as mentioned earlier, this Saturday, and I think they're always looking for volunteers. I don't think they could ever have too many. Veterans Day, City Hall and Library will be closed. The Friends of the Library biannual book sale is November 19th and 20th. And Winter Glow kickoff, we're going to have a really special kickoff on November 20th to celebrate the grand opening or the first day. And then Thanksgiving holiday, City Hall and Library will be closed on November 25th and 26th. And I believe November 26th is, forgive me, National Indigenous Day, I believe. Yeah. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Oh, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope this is an appropriate time to bring this up. It's probably more directed towards Lisa. I just saw a note that I had made. It's in regards, we've talked about this in the past, the turn lane going into Walgreens. Is this the appropriate time to ask what the status of that is?
Yes, that is a fair question, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to remind you that David started a week ago. And so he has reached out to the chief and has to get the accident data from Chief Simmons in order to be able to do an evaluation of the safety of that and whether or not that slip lane can be reopened. So it is in process, but we do not have an answer yet.
I can speak into it too, if you like.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I did. Yeah, thank you. I did speak with Chief. We've been actually corresponding the last couple of days. I received the accident data, saw a couple of things. So my next response is going, oh, well, my next part of the process will be just evaluating it and then discussing with him what professional opinions are about it. So it is in process, but we've been talking this last, was it today's Thursday? So since Tuesday. So we've been going back and forth and stuff. So yeah, it's actually moving. We just have to figure out what we're going to do with it.
Further question. Thanks, David. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
My question would be is that obviously looking at the study of turning west to east to go into Walgreens, just beyond that, just south of there, there's the turn that turns from east to west to go into that side. There's also the entrance further down where you could either turn into Safeway or the other grocery store on the other side. Is the evaluation being done of those at the same time?
Yes, they are. Yeah, because that's actually you're pointing out the things that I was thinking of as well too. There's a lot going on right there. So I see what you're saying, and I kind of picked up on the same thing as well. So this is why I'm just going over this with the chief.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no more questions, we will move on to workshops. Workshop for tonight, which is the City Council Rules of Procedure. This is actually also on the agenda for a resolution for tonight. What you have in front of you is the clean copy. Great job, Kelsey, on getting through all the red lines and getting that out to the council. You're also provided the red lines. Oh, is that the matrix that we meant? Did we miss that?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
This matrix is for the end, for the upcoming agenda items.
Gotcha. All right. So
Sorry about the confusion, Todd.
That's okay. So you've got the clean copy of the rules of procedure, incorporated the comments that have come in the back and forth over the last several months as we've been going through this. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about anything in the rules of procedure, the clean copy that will be up for resolution approval a little bit later? Councilmember Kurtz.
I had one question, and when we were, when the absence is being excused, there's a process for that. But there isn't any comment or any other information about an unexcused absence and what that means. And I don't know if it fits within the rules of procedure or somewhere else, but I mean, we do have a lot of absences, and I don't know that we've ever unexcused anybody, but I am curious about what happens if something is unexcused and what that means. And I don't know what document that belongs in.
Yeah, I know it's in here somewhere. Not pinpointing the section right off the bat, but I believe, here you go. A council member shall forfeit his or her office by failing to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings of the council without being excused by the council.
Okay, so I missed it. Thank you.
That's okay, that's okay. And just for further clarification, you know, we do have the instances that we've talked about during the discussions where, you know, if there's a family emergency, we may not know why that person's absent, so they may start out as unexcused, but then we did give the council the ability to change that to excused. But basically, you know, no call, no show is unexcused at this point based on the past history.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Sean.
In addition to the rules, there's also a statute that addresses 3 unexcused absences. So that language that's in the rules comes from the statute.
Yeah, the RCW, sorry, there. Thanks, Sean. I should have mentioned that. Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, thank you very much. In regards to the unfunded projects workshop, is there a way that we can consider having that move along simultaneously with our workshop discussions on the proposed budget, so that, as Councilmember Dunn and others mentioned at our last meeting, that we probably want those to move in line with the proposed budget, so that if anything needs to go back on that proposed budget, it can do so in time for it to be included in the vote, so that areas that are requiring REIT funding, et cetera, are not excluded from the possibility.
Understood. Can we postpone your question until we get to looking at the future meetings? Todd, you need to kind of take that down. We're actually on the rules of procedure. So if we can table your question, Councilmember Garcia, until we get to the future workshop schedule, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Because we have had some discussions about how to handle that. So I've got some ideas.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things on here is that, one, just for information, if my memory serves me correctly, in the last 9 years, easier that I've been around, I can recall one time where the council member was not excused, and by the next meeting, he was excused because it turned out to be a family issue. So our attorney is absolutely right. The RCWs does address that, and it is very, very simple. You miss 3 unexcused, you're gone. But in history, do I ever know of anybody that's ever happened to? No. So moving on, I've got several things that I would like to address on this. Nothing serious at all. What I did is I've gone back to our October 5th council meeting when we had the red lines and stuff. And then I went back to the one previous to that to see how we change as we go along. So I've got a couple of things that I feel we need to upgrade.
Sure.
They're
So
very, very
if you can
simple.
give us the sections, that will be.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Very, very simple. Nothing. These are all items that have been brought up by various council members and had been basically agreed on. They just didn't get some of the changes, so they might have fallen through the cracks. If I can address page 1, 1.2, respect and decorum. The last sentence. And I don't remember who brought this up. Council members and the public shall obey legitimate orders of the mayor. I believe the recommendation was, instead of obey, was adhere. That was one recommendation that we consider.
No, I didn't even, I must have missed that myself.
If I may, with the council's approval, I'd like to be able to move on, okay?
Right.
The next page would be page 4. Item 3.5. Just one more, make sure I got my notes right. Okay. Item 3.5, substitution of the chair. Says the chair may call upon the mayor pro tem or any other member to the chair meeting. If you refer to 3.1, there might be slight confusion here. So if the council sees no challenge with this, I certainly don't. On 3.1, it says chair, the mayor, if present, shall preside as the chair at all meetings of the council. In the absence of the mayor pro tem shall preside. In the absence of the mayor pro tem and the mayor pro tem council shall elect a chair. So I go back to 3.5. The chair may call upon mayor pro tem or any other member of the chair. I think that's confusing. It should be referred to 3.1, where the council decides on the chair. So my question would be, should council consider just either correcting 3.5 or removing 3.5? Because I think it's sort of redundant or confusing after looking at 3.1.
So just I 3.5 used to say to temporarily chair the meeting, and that was taken out. And so, for instance, when we were having, I was having technical difficulties the one day, and I had to say, hey, real quick, hey, can you chair the meeting? So I think the intent, and Sean, jump in, obviously, if I'm wrong, I think the intent of 3.5 is in that, if for a brief minute I have to get up and go to the bathroom and you're not here, hey, Councilmember Garcia, can you chair the meeting? I think that's what that is supposed to cover. Am I reading that correctly, Sean?
I think that's accurate. I think it is a situation of you would be there, but the mayor pro tem wouldn't be there. And if you were there during the meeting and then had to leave for some reason, then you would ask one of the other members of the council to chair the meeting. That's the situation as far as substitution.
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I understand, but I have to go back to 3.1, and I don't want to get too carried away on this. It simply says, in the absence of the mayor or mayor pro tem, the council shall elect a chair. So my interpretation is, if mayor pro tem is not here, the mayor has to leave for whatever reason temporarily, the council itself could say, okay, so-and-so, we'd like to have you fill in for this period of time.
Sean, thoughts?
I'm sorry.
Just thoughts, I mean, do we?
Certainly we can revise it. I don't think it's an issue. I think the intent of the language was in the sense of the chair under 3.1 was the mayor and mayor pro tem would not be present. So at that particular meeting, the council would select a chair. Under 3.5, it's substitution. The intent being there may be a meeting that is occurring and then there'd be a substitution during that meeting. Either the mayor pro tem, and if that person isn't there, then someone else to chair the meeting as there would be a need for a substitution.
It maybe just needs wordsmithing.
Well, so should we put temporarily back into 3.5 where it was removed? Councilmember Garcia, your question. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I don't have a question. I forgot to lower the hand.
Just want to make sure. All right, so if we put temporarily back into 3.5, so it reads the chair may call upon the mayor pro tem or any other member to temporarily chair the meeting, which is what it said originally. Is everybody okay with that? I don't see any objection. You have that note, Kelsey?
I do, yes.
All right.
Very good. Moving on. Thank you. Next would be on page 5. Workshop discussions. Workshop and staff presentations on specific issues and topics including but not limited to such items as proposed ordinances, resolutions, public works projects, finance, blah, blah, blah. Policy news may be presented at this time. I refer you back to 2.4, page 3. This might be redundant, but still, I think it should be addressed. 2.4, page 3 states the last sentence where it talks, oh, I'm sorry, hold on. I jumped 1.7. Give me a second here. 2.4 workshops. It specifies the council may also hold special workshops outside of. Give me a second. It's a reference strictly to that at the workshops, the council that so desires can make a decision at these workshops.
So.
I think I wrote the wrong reference number down.
So the workshops in 2.4 are the ones from 6 to 7. The workshops in 4.1I are the workshops during a regular meeting.
That's
Does that
true.
help?
Yes, that's true. But in all workshops, 6 o'clock or 7, or any workshop we have, it is specified in our rules and regulations that the council can make decisions in those workshops. I apologize if I put down 2.4.
No,
Made
it's-
that
it's okay.
reference.
I think the reason, if anybody obviously jump in and remind me, under the 2.4 workshops prior to the regular meeting, so 6 to 7, I think we added that be able to make a decision because in the past, we had thought that weren't, because it wasn't part of the regular agenda. So
Yeah.
I think, at least in my opinion, what it says in 2.4 isn't in conflict because the workshop discussions in 4.1I are during the regular meeting.
Well, bottom line is that whenever council has a workshop, the council has the option or has the authority to make a decision in those workshops. So once again, I apologize if I referred to 2.4. But
So what are you, I guess, what are you proposing to
what I'm
adjust?
proposing is that anywhere we have rules and regulations where it refers to a workshop, one of them in here says in a workshop that the council can either delay to another meeting or make decisions in that meeting. So when I read workshop discussions, I feel it needs to have the same verbiage.
So Kelsey, just for you following, so in 2.4 workshops at the top of page 4 of a clean version, and where it starts with at the bottom of page 3, it says the workshop will allow informal discussion of issues amongst the council, which may also be directed for action at a future meeting or during the workshop. So if we, Mayor Pro Tem said, we're looking at that, are you looking at adding that same sentence then under workshops in
Yes.
4.1I? Kelsey,
Right.
does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Once again, for clarification moving forward, so somebody, if they misread it, could say, well, the council can make decisions. Somebody might read the other one and go, oh, they can't make decisions.
Yeah.
So once
Yeah,
again,
the challenge with this document was, in one section, it basically goes through the process, and then the other one was just a description of the thing,
absolutely,
so it's challenging to marry it all up.
very good.
So did anybody have any questions or concerns about adding that clarification in to 4.1I on page 5? I don't see. Okay, next.
Next was on page 7, 5.1 voting, A. Why I remember this so well, because I was the one that brought it up on several occasions. It says recorded votes occur on ordinances and resolutions. What had been referred to previously is we could go to 1.7, page 3. Page 3. Down near the last sentence, the city clerk shall keep the minutes of the council, record all council votes and actions, and perform such other duties necessary That's the attendance of the city staff. The point being is that why this was brought up is that at one point it did say on ordinance and resolutions. Enough council members in their discussion felt that all votes that the council has should be recorded. The challenge with that is if we don't record those in 6 months or 2 months or 2 weeks later, we say, well, did the council vote on this? Somebody can say, well, yes, we did, but it wasn't recorded. So the recommendation was that all votes, where there's a motion, second, discussion, and a vote, has to be recorded.
Which is covered in 51D.
Right. So once again, just elsewhere in the document, it needs to reference that.
Well, I think they matched. 5.17 says, "We shall keep minutes of the council, record all council votes and actions." And 5.1D says, "Keep a record of city council member votes for all resolutions, ordinance, consent agenda, and action items." And that's anything that's voted on.
And once again, what the discussion was, it didn't seem to be a challenge for a council member at the time, because no one was against it, to add in there that all votes would be recorded.
I guess I'm not seeing the difference between that and what it says in 5D.
Okay, council, what do you feel? It's your decision.
Councilmember Garcia.
With the votes being recorded by the clerk reflected on the minutes, would we not consider that an action of recording the votes? And therefore, we would not need to change anything?
Council?
Councilmember Kurtz.
I think if I'm remembering some of the discussion in the past, I think there was an ask for something to be on the website, and there was a discussion about things in an Excel document. And I'm just bringing that up because I just remember that part of the discussion. As far as the language piece, I feel like the things that we're voting on outlined in 5.1D those are all the things that we would vote on. So as far as language, I don't know that there needs to be language. I think there's still some interest. Well, I've heard some interest from other people in the meetings about having, like a dashboard of votes. But I think that goes back to Granicus and is a bigger discussion. But for tonight's topic with that language, I don't know that for me, it needs to change.
Yeah.
Whatever, for me, whatever the council is comfortable with, so we can move forward. The bottom line is it was felt by majority of the council, because no one was disagreement of it at the time, that all votes should be recorded. All votes.
I'll look to the council. Is the consensus to leave it as is? Just look for is there any opposition? Let me do it this way. Is there anybody opposed to leaving it as is? Not seeing any. Councilmember Garcia, did you have another comment? I just want to make sure.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I keep forgetting to take that down.
That's okay. It makes me remember to look. All right. Sounds like there's no opposition to leaving it.
Very good. Very good. Page number 9, under E. And like I say, this was just in one of the notes that come up where the council member brought this up. Under E, it says council members shall not reply or respond in any way or temporary. But I saw that somebody had made this note, and I do not recall who it was. The recommendation was council members are discouraged to respond in any way to testimony provided.
Oh, so you're up at the top, B, C, D, E. I thought you said 8, not E. That's
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So Sean and Lisa, you're probably the best people to look at this. This is with regards to testimony at a public hearing, not public comments, but at a public hearing. So it says council members shall not reply or respond in any way to testimony provided by speakers at the public hearing, except to request specific clarification. I'm assuming that is there for a specific reason because it's a public hearing topic.
That would be the appropriate place for council members to make their comments on testimony heard is during deliberations. But you can ask clarifying questions for certain. But again, generally speaking, deliberations is the appropriate time in a public hearing to respond.
I agree with that, Mayor.
So leave E as it is. So during the testimony, there's no comments.
Yeah, fine, very good. Once again, looking back over, we've had so many different documents where we've discussed this and notes were in there, and sometimes they get missed, and then of course we go over there again.
Yep.
The last item that I had was a drum roll.
What page first?
Page 11,
Okay.
under 9.6.
Oh, yeah.
Where it refers to each council member shall be given the opportunity to submit a nomination for Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep.
That the discussion's been brought up. I feel very strongly about this. Is that the way it's set up is that first individual gets 4 votes. I don't feel that that is appropriate. The simple reason is council members, we all have a vote. And the citizens give us that vote. And I believe the citizens expect to see how we vote. And I think this is somewhat restrictive. I think it does work, but I think it's somewhat restrictive that the first individual comes up and gets 4 votes. If there's 3 other council members, they don't get a voice.
Well, actually, if you look at the last sentence, it does say the votes of all 7 city council members will be recorded on the record. So at 4, it's this person gets it, but then you continue with the rest. So
In the
everybody,
past,
we haven't done it in the past.
we've never, ever done that.
Correct. Well, so this was added because of the comments during their discussions, so that we do have the recorded votes of every council member.
Council comfortable with that?
Councilmember Kurtz.
Well, I actually had a question because I know why we put in that everybody should be there, all 7 members, but as I'm thinking forward to January, when we will have to do an appointment, which can take us a while and we'll have to do interviews, that means we won't be able to vote on a mayor pro tem until we have 7 council members. And so I'm wondering if that's the way we want to move forward.
Councilor Kurtz, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I had a difficulty hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm thinking forward to January when we're going to have new council members on board, but we won't have DG as on board and until or unless she would be appointed. We will have 1 member short until the appointment of that position is made. And so the way it reads now, we wouldn't be able to vote on a mayor pro tem until we have an appointment of that 7th council person, which could take us a while depending on the number of applicants and what the process is. And I guess my question is, with that in mind, would this be the way we want to move forward?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Kurtz, for explaining that. Keep in mind that the council has not decided that when we're going to vote on the 7th position.
Mhm.
Council can decide if we want, we have 90 days to do it. So the council, we haven't even had the discussion yet. Because the normal process, as we know, that on the 23rd, when all the votes are confirmed, at that point, we go back to 6 council members. And at that point, we could open up the applications. At that point, we could certainly have more than enough time before the end of the year to fill that position. But if the majority of the council decides they want to wait until next year, that could certainly happen. But the point is, we have not had that discussion yet.
Councilmember Follier.
Thank you, Mayor. Yep, you can hear me. Just a thought. You could what if this forever. It could be 2 people that we're down by, that somebody moves out, whatever. I say you stick with the 7 And the previous mayor pro tem stays in place until we have 7 members to vote on it.
Or that we can always suspend the rule. Is that correct, Sean?
Yes.
Or suspended rules.
Everybody okay with leaving it as is, and if we are short 1 or 2 members, not just due to an absence, we can always, the council can look at suspending the rule at that time.
Yeah, very good. That's all I have. Thank
All
you.
right, Kelsey, did you get, I will go back to Mayor Pro Tem, your first note about the language change. Does anybody have, is anybody opposed to changing the language from council members and the public shall obey the legitimate orders of the mayor to council members and the public shall adhere to the legitimate orders of the mayor? Is anybody opposed to making that change? Sweet, we're good. Kelsey, you have that one?
I've got it recorded.
All right, so just procedurally then, when we get to the resolutions, when we move it with the agreed upon changes. From the
I agree.
workshop. Okay,
I agree.
make sure we're all on board. All right. General business. Good work, guys. Glad to finally put this one to bed.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Item number 10, general business consent agenda. Motion to approve the October 19, 2021 city council meeting minutes. Also, I consent agenda 2, approve the November 2nd, 2021 vouchers in the amount of $131,727.27.
Was that seconded, Councilmember Kurtz? Yeah, second by Councilmember Kurtz. Any, I can't say the last name right tonight. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Not seeing any. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda items 1 and 2, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0.
Very good, thank you. Going on to action items. 1, authorize the mayor to motion to authorize the mayor to execute the contract with Midland Electric at the amount of $733,763 with $73,237 for inspection and contingency to be managed by staff for a total authorization of $807,000.
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Kurtz. Any discussion? This is the signal at Legacy Bridge and Country Vista, correct, Lisa?
That is correct.
And if I remember correctly, our agreement with the Ray Lake Land Company, I believe was, the final number escapes me, $167,000.
That was the estimate, but they're actually on tap for the actual cost of the 4th leg improvements and the fourth signal.
Yeah, so I knew, I mean, at least at a minimum, we know that they're on the hook for that 167,000 plus whatever the increased amount is now, so.
That is correct. That is correct. That's part of the total 807,000, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Foyer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just a couple questions, I guess. I want to compare this to our capital facilities plan. Our capital facilities plan says that we've experienced $75,000 worth of costs this year and $650 for next year. So of this 807, or I guess 733, 763, is any of the 75 from this year apply towards that? Or is this on top of what we've already put out for design?
Yeah, so it's the 75,000 would be from this year would be applied to that. The other thing I'm going to say about that is the fact that we do have the money in this year's budget in that line item for other capital projects that are not actually going to happen this year. So we do have all the money in this year to cover this. And I'm going to defer to Kyle in case he wants to add any thoughts to that.
Right. So the initial discussion was, okay, we need to do a budget amendment to account for the expenditures that were going to happen in 2021. Once we looked at at those line items, we did discover that was actually going to be unnecessary paperwork. So.
So the 75, we haven't put it out yet, but we're going to use it for this project in 22.
Actually, yes, and the potential is there for them to spend some of the money this year because there are some items that they could advance order that have a long lead time. There's also some work that could be done in this season in anticipation of receiving the equipment next year. So, and we gave them the flexibility in this contract to make it more appealing to bidders.
Perfect. Thank you. And I guess my last comment is, I love roundabouts. We should get rid of every light in the city, put in roundabouts. Thank you. But I understand. I understand.
Let us know what you really feel.
All right, any more comments or questions on action item 1? Not seeing or hearing any. All in favor of authorizing the contract with Midland Electric, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0, and this is great news for everybody at Legacy Bridge. I'm sure Phil and Annie, you are jumping for joy inside as well. You know, I know it's later than we planned, but we did save, I think, approximately $100,000 by waiting and bidding again. So spread the word up in Legacy Bridge that it's coming and we're moving forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Action item number 2, motion to authorize the mayor to sign a lease agreement addendum with Palenque's. And looking at this, I see that their contract expired October 2021. And it's, the recommendation is it goes to a month to month.
All right, do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Kurtz. And yeah, their current contract defaulted to month, based on my discussions to Kyle. This is just formalizing that they are month until such time that we get that wrecking ball going. Anybody have any questions or go ahead, Councilmember Foyer.
Thank you, Mayor. The way I read it, I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly. We're not going to have to revisit this until we terminate the agreement, correct?
That is correct. And so what we'll do is we'll actually restructure the agreement further because they have indicated that they want to stay on site even through construction. And so we will work with them since they've been such a good lease, such a good tenant for us. So we will restructure that agreement to reflect how can that still be mutually beneficial.
But as a summary, it's month to month until we terminate it.
Correct. Yeah.
Anything future will be a new agreement. All right, any other questions? All right, if not seeing any, all in favor of signing the lease agreement addendum with Palenque's, please say aye.
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 All right, see 4 out of 4 just to confirm. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Going on to action item 3, motion to authorize the mayor to execute a professional service agreement with one of the Trailhead commercial real estate brokers. And I noticed that we have 2 with presentations.
Yep, so we'll go ahead and take a second and then we'll move to discussion and whatnot. So we have a second.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Kurtz. All right, Lisa, did you want to kind of kick this discussion off? I know there had been some additional information that came in, and I'm sure the council wanted some more time to discuss before voting on which one to sign with.
So as directed by council at the last meeting, I have brought back 2 professional service agreements. I do know that Eric Peterson and Doug Bird both are on the call. Should you have any questions? Basically, you have the agreements before you and looking for a motion from council to approve and authorize the mayor to execute one of these 2 agreements.
So I'm not quite sure where we want to start. Council has the additional information. Any suggestions on how we want to handle this discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Gee, thank you for throwing that ball this direction.
Well, I know you had like most questions the last time. That's why.
Yes, I did, but I think that I would like to hear from the council. I have my own opinion on this. I've looked at both of these. I think both companies are really outstanding. I certainly have a favor on this, but I certainly would like to see any comments from other council members on the contract that is being proposed from both companies.
Councilmember Collier.
Oh, well, I was gonna make. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one, sorry. I'm gonna make a motion to approve Good Ale Barberi for the restaurant lease service.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Kurtz to move forward with the Goodell Barbieri contract. Do we have any discussion or questions on that? All right, not hearing any. We'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of moving forward with the contract with Goodell Barbieri, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, looks like motion passes 4-0, and now we need to go back then and approve the authorization to sign said contract. So do we have any discussion regards to authorizing me signing the agreement? Doubt it, but thought I'd ask. All right, not hearing any. So all in favor of authorizing me to sign that agreement with Goodell Barbieri, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, it's likely motion passes 4-0.
Very good, thank you. Action item number 4. Appoint
If
Connie-
I could interject for a second,
I'm sorry.
Doug Bird responding real quick. I think Eric will do an excellent job for you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your efforts on this, Doug.
You're
Thank you, Doug.
very welcome.
If I could say something there, Mr. Bird, I appreciate what you just said, because over the years, I've done business with both companies, and both companies are actually outstanding, and I think it's commendable for the comment that you just made. Thank you for that. It shows the professionalism that your company has demonstrated in this area for many, many years. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I look forward to working with Eric on this.
Go.
Action item number 4. Motion to appoint Connie Somas, and if I mispronounce that, I apologize, Somas, to position 2 to serve on the Parks and Art Commission.
Second.
Okay, we got a second from Councilmember Kurtz. Any questions or comments? Not hearing any. I will just quick comment. Again, we've had a couple really good candidates. Would have loved to have either one. Our other candidate is actually looking at some of the other open committees. So really love to see the engagement that we're getting from the community these days. A lot of times we're scrambling for applications, and there's been a lot of interest over the last 6 to 8 months for our commission. So glad to hear it. And so no further ado, all in favor of confirming Connie Somas to position 2 for Parks and Arts Commission, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, she is confirmed 4-0. Thanks, everybody. And we're to public hearings and appeals. Public hearing on 2022 revenue sources. Kyle.
All right, so Todd will throw up our PowerPoint here real quick, and we'll get into first off, kind of an idea of where we're at right now. Todd, next slide, please. So starting off, so in October of 2021, we got a little snapshot here of where we're at in general fund and the streets fund. And so as you can see, so we're starting October, ending September with $6.2 million in excess in general fund. And so by comparison, at this time last year, we were at 4.7. So we're on a good trajectory there. And so we're in a good space, not including those beginning and ending balances as well. Revenues have exceeded expenditures by $482,000 in the general fund. And as a whole, for all funds combined, we're at 3.3 million for revenues exceeding expenditures. So some things to expect as we close out 2021. We do still anticipate big disbursements from the county for second half property taxes. So you'll see those lump sums usually show up twice a year. Those are in May and April, and then you'll see another big disbursement in November and December. And so I think, as everybody's aware, our sales tax continues to outpace our projections. Councilmember Foyle, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. So your second half property taxes revenue is not included in your number above of the 3.3 to year?
That is correct.
Thank you. And do you have an estimate?
I can pull that before the end of the meeting and let everybody know.
Yep, not that critical. Thank you.
Yep. And so, kind of getting into next year, you can see kind of the trajectory of how where sales tax is going, and that's just been such a fantastic boon for the city. And so, moving on into streets, utility taxes is a major funder of our streets operations, and the majority of those utility taxes are still on a good trajectory. We do see the telephone utility tax continue to decline. But with your others, with your, electricity or garbage, you have 6 or 7 others that more than augment any sort of decline in the telephone revenue. So we're still seeing some good increases in utility tax. And so gas tax did rebound from last year. Obviously, with less activity in 2020, we did see a reduction a little bit in that gas tax. That has rebounded to more normal levels. So no ongoing issues with the gas tax. Next slide, please. So as we get into 2022, we'll get an idea for obviously major revenue sources that we'll want to keep an eye on. We talked about where our primary funds come from already, from the general fund coming from property and sales tax. Streets fund is utility and gas tax. A chunk of that utility tax does go towards our streets capital fund those bigger projects. But moving on, so we have this new American Rescue Plan that we've been chewing through this year, and that we'll continue to plan for. And so we had that 1.53 in 2021. We're going to get another 1.53 million in June of 2022, and that is we've discussed this several times on where these and where council has identified where we want those needs to go. And so I've been in discussions. Obviously, we've talked about nonprofits, and that we're just wrapping that up. We will eventually get into how we can aid small businesses as well, and get our head wrapped around how we can effectively get a need for that and get some money out the door for them. I'm also in discussions with SNAP as well, and council will see a proposal at the next council meeting for direct aid to residents regarding utilities for council consideration. Councilmember Foyer.
Yep, thank you, Kyle. So I did a little bit of reading on the intent of these funds.
Yeah.
One of the things that got my attention a little bit was the comment we have here about invest in utility infrastructure. But what I've been reading, and maybe I'm misreading it, the impression I'm getting is it's invest in any infrastructure that promotes positive economic returns on investment. So I would ask that we maybe revisit the intent of these funds for a bigger, broader impact on our city.
And that's a very good point. And so as these, so when the spending guidelines were initially released, it was water, sewer, broadband, and that was really the only thing that they were going to allow. And as they continue to write parameters around these, I think they have slowly tried to expand kind of the uses of this, to Councilmember Foyer's point, by couching it under these economic returns, and how can we best get economic returns for these monies that we're putting in. And so absolutely, I agree with him on that we revisit how to best utilize these funds.
There's a big bunch more guidance that came out last week as well. So we're learning more every week.
My guess is, as this guidance continues to be released into next year, my guess is they're going to continue to expand allowable uses, would be my guess. So great point, moving along. So we'll get into other major revenue sources. We get about $500,000 a year from real estate excise tax in each REIT Fund 1 and REIT Fund 2. They are essentially the same thing. REIT 2 has a little bit more stringent guidelines on what we can spend those dollars on. But for our term, since we have a capitals facility plan, we can identify that, and we don't have any issue identifying, eligible projects for those. So as it says there, those essentially just help fund items in the capital facilities plan. And so our transportation benefit district is under our Harvard Road Mitigation Fund. And so these can be used for a variety of different infrastructure projects as well. These are actually great matching resources for state funds as well, Transportation Improvement Board, and other streets related improvements as well. So, and then getting into enterprise funds, stormwater, aquifer protection. The golf course has had a record year this year. And so that's just been fantastic to see how that revenue has been expanded greatly. And, 2020, it was a big surprise. And then again in 2021. So those have been fantastic pieces of information to pass along. Next slide, please. And so we've been talking about, foregoing the statutory 1% increase in property tax. Both the mayor and city staff believe that this is prudent since our revenues and our reserve balances are so strong. And so what we do expect to see is an increase of about, $100,800. That is 2021 new construction credit that we're going to collect in 2022. And as you'll see, without the property tax increase, you'll see our rate per $1,000 drop. And so this is an estimate. So our levy specialists over at Spokane County are still calculating these rates, but the latest projection is we're looking at about $1.26 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And so, you put that in layman's terms. For property assessed at $300,000, the city portion of those property taxes be reduced by about $30 next year. Next slide, please. And so this is the chart that we like to show everybody, that where Liberty Lake's assessed dollars per thousand of assessed value taxation is lower than our counterparts. And so this is a kind of a very prideful document, I guess, to show. And so you can see kind of where other entities sit and where Liberty Lake is currently in. Councilmember Foyer?
Yeah, thank you. I hope you don't mind questions during your presentation.
Oh, please, yeah.
So can you help me understand how we're going from 1.3554 to 1.26? What's attributing to the reduction in our portion of the real estate tax?
So our tax base grows every year. And so you have our dollars collected for that percentage is not going to change, but our tax base does increase. And so that spreads out that dollar or that amount per $1,000 of assessed valuation decreases the bigger our tax base grows if we are not ourselves increasing the taxes. I can send you some
Property tax math was not fun.
and
like Phil, like last year, there was a property tax rate that we did the increase of, I think it was 0.6, because that was the max we were allowed. It actually dropped the rate as well, even though we had a small increase. Since we were growing so much, the rate went from, I think it was 141 or 142 down to the 1.355 where we are.
So our assessed valuation, and these numbers are still not finalized. This is why this is a guesstimation. Let's say would increase from $2.9 billion of assessed value within the city of Liberty Lake to $3.2 billion of assessed valuation. And so that spreads out, and with our taxes staying the same, you have an increased tax base to collect the same amount of money. if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. I understand that part of it, but I guess I'm wondering, as I look through our budget, which we've done earlier tonight, the police department, for example, is a $615,000 increase from last year. So trying to understand how we can pay for that and look after our residents in the real estate department and still, have money in reserves for the next 8 to 10, 15 years.
Understood. So, and we can certainly, on the next slide, I think we can dive deeper into that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? Perfect. Okay. So this is the 6-year forecast that gets out every year, and you get a little bit of a snapshot of what happened before, kind of where we're at now, and where we are conservatively kind of projecting to go. And so you see the very top, property tax, we more or less, your statutory increase is 1%. And city council staff, mayor make the determination of need. Do we need the 1% property tax increase? And to, I guess, to expand on that a little bit, when you don't take the 1% property tax increase, what I've included in the ordinance is the city's option to bank what they call that capacity. So if we don't take it this year, we can assess the need next year, and we can recoup that banked capacity if the city council so chooses. And so this is just a mechanism. In the meantime, we think that we have enough resources to get through our operations and capital costs. And this is but we reserve the right, when you bank that capacity, to go back and account for that additional percent. Moving into sales tax, we budget a 2% increase. We're closer to 15%. And so I have a hard time pushing the revenues so hard that we might not hit them. So we are budgeting very conservatively on the revenue side to make sure we hit these marks and exceed these marks, so we can show that we have that reliable revenue stream. And so we talked a little bit about utility taxes as well. And then getting into, let's see, some of these revenues or licenses and permits, intergovernmental revenues. Included in that figure, you can see we have a pretty big jump from 2021 to 2022 for intergovernmental revenues. We've included the LIFT reimbursements for all of our approved projects that are reimbursable by LIFT in that. And so I don't know how, I guess, into the weeds you want me to get, but we can get a bigger snapshot of, if we proceed down the 2022 budget line, and we have the capital outlay of 5.4 million. And so that's a big number. Obviously, what's included in that is Kramer Overpass. We've included the $2 million for the trailhead upfront cost. And so we have a couple big time expenditures in 2022 that accounts for, that you could see that drop in ending cash balance from beginning cash on that. And as you look, we can point to this, the 4 from the top, this revenue versus expenditure line item that does kind of bleed into the red here. And so what you do when you budget is you try to account for all possible expenditures when you pass a budget. You try to budget conservatively for revenues, and you will show at times we've invested a massive amount in staffing. We can say that up front, that there was a determination in a council priority that we need to invest in our staff to continue to provide these services that we have. And so we will be able to assess this on a yearly basis and determine if we have any issues. We can chart this course, or we can correct this course, because as you get into 2028, that number is going to change every single year based on how our budget is adjusted. And so while it may look like we're heading into the red, we will never allow it to get to that point. Mayor, did you have something to say?
No, I was just gonna say, that capital outlay line, does make a big difference. And what I like to look at more than anything else is the increase or decrease in the cash balances, which obviously 2022, Kyle, like you said, is a huge drop because of the capital outlay that we have in there for Trailhead. But then you look out and obviously it grows a little bit more every year, but being conservative on the revenue side and I don't think I can't remember how far back ago, we always are over on sales tax. And why we don't want to bank on that, but at least this is why we look out as far as we do to make sure we can plan ahead. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, Phil, Councilmember Garcia or Eva.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Kyle, I just have another thought after talking earlier. Why wouldn't it be beneficial actually to project out on our debt service? Why wouldn't it not be beneficial to maybe project debt service?
We absolutely could. So what this exercise has been that I took over was a snapshot of revenues and operations while taking into account capital expenditures for general fund and streets. And so we can absolutely make these same forecasts or determinations if council so chooses for our real estate excise tax. And so when the trailhead funding was passed, it was always the intent according to the what we were able to produce in the real estate excise tax funds to fund the trailhead project through the real estate excise tax funds. So that's why we do not show the debt service in the general fund going out. And so if that makes sense. So we're talking about two separate funds.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilmember Collier.
Thank you, Mayor. So Kyle, earlier you said that under intergovernment revenues, the big jump is due to lift reimbursements. So that the lift, just so everybody understands, the lift reimbursements are money we have already put out.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So we're just being reimbursed for what we already put out. So my question then is, on your earlier slide, is that lift reimbursement part of the revenues exceeds expenditures by 3.3 million?
That would be my understanding, unless something is not tying right. I can verify that for you once I go back through and look at it.
It must be, because to have $2 million, revenue exceed expenditure in 1 year,
right?
Something's not right there. So,
yeah.
So when I look at a reimbursement, that's not a revenue per se. So it maybe skews the spreadsheet a little bit, because how much of that number of the 3.1 mil is lift reimbursement?
I can go back through and look, but so when you look at the capital outlay, our capital outlay for any lift eligible expenses has that equal revenue line item to zero those projects out.
Let me ask you another question on the lift. Is it always the case that we put the money out and then we get reimbursed?
No. So we have what we call like project years, where you'll have a lot more taken out 1 year. We are constantly putting in 2 million a year. So between the city and Spokane County and the fire district, we put in $1 million. The state matches that.
But you understand what I'm saying? A reimbursement is not a revenue.
Right. So for our purposes, you do not see in this where we put in to the lift program through our TIF. So you can see what we could do to I guess fix this 6-year forecast is we could include all of those different revenues or all of those different, expenses that we put into Lyft, and then show how we're getting that back. It takes a little bit of gymnastics to show that, because we're pulling from different funds.
I understand.
And we're also getting input from Spokane County. We're also getting input from the fire district. And so it's hard to show on a 6-year forecast. And so I think the decision, before my time was made to not include it, because it gets a little too convoluted to show on an Excel spreadsheet.
Right. So when I look at this spreadsheet, your case in point, all the previous years, it's in the mid 4s, high 4s. As you project out, we're into the low 5s. And all of a sudden we have 2 years where we're triple, 6 times that. So it's just I just don't know how. I'm not an accountant. You're great at what you do. All I'm suspect of is, does it skew the end result?
It does not skew the end result. And so it is a perfect match 1 for 1.
Okay. Can I add something else to your presentation? Go back. I'm sorry. Maybe I should wait till I guess that's your last slide.
This was the last slide. So go fire away.
When we talk about comparisons going forward, I think it would be fair to use, when we use an example of, for example, you have a $300,000 property. I would ask that maybe in the future we use Liberty Lakes medium sold average price rather than something that's unrealistic.
Understood. Okay.
Our medium sold average price is $526.
Sure.
Because when you have the discussion about the property tax, the 1%, 1% of 300 is different than 526, which is the median price. Which, by the way, 1% of 526 is $6.62.
Yes.
Kyle, I think a couple of the questions that I had, and you probably have this someplace, that numbers are not my jam. And so it's probably in here somewhere and I just don't know where it is. But as far as kind of along the lines of what Phil was asking about, the pricing point, my 2 questions are, one, if we don't do the property tax, what is the estimated loss of revenue for the city? And then currently, what is that revenue funding for the city? Those are the 2 questions that I had.
Absolutely. So not taking the 1% property tax, we are foregoing roughly $32,000. And so that goes directly into the general fund. Okay. And so that funds, it doesn't fund any exact one item. Right. It is a big pot that gets spread out over all of our departments.
That answers all of my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Collier, you're up again.
Sorry, I don't mean to steal the show here. So when the 1% is based on previous year's total real estate revenue, or is it based on something else?
It's based on our income tax collection in the previous year.
So last year was 2.5 million.
Income tax, property tax, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. So last year was 2.5 million. So it's 1% of that.
Yeah, and it'll be closer to 3 million. So what we don't see here, and what is hard to put on, our participation in TIF and Lyft, we don't see that when that comes out. Spokane County grabs that directly. And so we don't see that. We're seeing our portion.
Oh, okay.
All right. And so, and so it's closer to 3 million. But what we show here for collection in 2022 is a proportional, I guess I would say.
It's actual revenue. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Councilmember Garcia.
I too hate to keep asking questions, but I'm looking back at this and previous conversation. When I see zeros, I kind of say woohoo, and then I kind of say it's too good to be true. And I do think, since I'm just a regular citizen too, that when I see zeros, I really don't understand what that means. Would it be, I don't want to use the word smarter, but would it be difficult to add those figures in, add that lift match back in and add that debt service in? And then when you explain it out to the public who might look at this later, they have a better idea of what you're talking about because they can see in real time numbers and then your explanations would follow versus them wondering and they're going to come back for more information like we're doing as council members. But would it be prudent? I mean, I'm one of 7, but would it be prudent to have that in there? Just whatever those numbers are, whatever that calculation would be, so that people get an idea. And then when you describe it and lay it out for everyone, including the council and mayor, you're laying it out where people can say, oh, I see how they came to that. I see where we're going versus what I don't see how they came to whatever it is they came to. And then as you're explaining it to us, you're saying, in terms, you're saying, well, we could have, we didn't, but then it would be too much minutia. You didn't use that term, but too much minutia to go through it versus throwing the kitchen sink at everybody so they kind of see it, they don't have any questions, and then the explanation follow. I'm just thinking, out of the box here.
Oh, absolutely. No, fair question and fair position. So I think, and so what I've done personally is I've tried to follow kind of what I inherited, and I understand why this spreadsheet was created the way it was. And so when you're projecting out capital outlay and capital facility plan items, yes, we can identify what we think might be coming up. That changes almost every year. And so it wouldn't be misleading, but it would be information that, yes, we're projecting out, this is what we think it is. It's going to be something completely different next year based on our priorities and based on what has come up since putting this out. And so absolutely, yes, the answer is yes, we can project this out and show you. We will need to incorporate different funds to really show the true, because again, I go back to, this is a general fund and streets document that shows capital outlay from those two funds. And so, yes, we can show that. If council wants, I can try to put something together that expands this a little bit to give you a bigger picture of and incorporate other funds. We could have a separate spreadsheet that just identifies our capital outlay and how we're going to account for that. But I think based on what council wants to see, I will morph this document into how you want it. So.
Well, if I can add to that, Madam Mayor, if you could just maybe put it in one area, for example, 2023, and you put it in 2023, and then you say, this is what it could be now. This is the projection it could be now. And note that in future years, it could be more. So we've just shown you a projection for 1 year, but know that it would increase by perhaps X amount. So you can leave the zeros, but you first put in the question explanation and then you define it out. And this way, it's only 2 areas that have the information. And then you advise and educate, and then we can figure it out from there that it's going to go up from what the original projection was in the year before. Then you don't do too much excavating on this package here.
We can work through some different examples and get some different formats back to you guys. Great. Any more questions for Kyle? So this is I will be opening up for a public hearing here just in a couple minutes if you guys don't have any. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, yeah, more of a statement. I live in the 6-year forecast and I realize that we're extremely unique. I believe we're still probably about the 10th fastest growing city in Washington. There's 281 cities involved in AWC. There's numerous cities that I've been able to build a relationship with. A lot of these cities that I asked them questions on, these are cities that have already hit build out. They no longer have the businesses coming in, they no longer have the real estate, this type of stuff. So we are really a cash cow. We are very fortunate to be debt free as we are. And of course, looking at this, one huge thing is going to change very soon due to our debt service is zero, but then that will change when, of course, we get into Trailhead. The thing I'm going to be looking forward to come January 1 is that we have all this COVID money coming in. We have a lot of revenue coming in. We're going to continue to have a lot of growth in this city. So therefore, we're going to have very unique sales tax coming in. What I'm going to be interested in is that what can we do to relieve some of the pressure on our citizens? I know that we don't take the 1%, you know, a lot of people will get excited and say, well, we're giving up money, or, you know, we're giving something back to the citizen. That's $30,000. So I'm really looking forward to the council to get into is that if we are doing so well, at some point we realize this is going to stop or it slows down. So what can we do at this point to start reducing some of the pressure with our citizens? Realizing when we get to the point we don't have the growth that we have now, we may need to go back and raise some of these taxes that we could give them relief now. So looking forward to next year on that. Thank you. Great report, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right. So if there are no other questions or comments from the council, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. I've just got a couple of rules here. So we'll open the public hearing at 9:01. So we'll take all comments by proponents, opponents, or other members of the public. If you want to speak at the public hearing, just go ahead, as in our citizen comments, send a note to Todd Henderson, who's managing the meeting, through our chat. We'll just need you to give your full name, and if you are a city resident, whether you like proper. So if anybody has any comments or anything with regards to the revenue sources and presentation we just had, this is a public hearing on 2022 revenue sources. Don't everybody jump at once.
Right.
All right, Todd, are we getting anybody? All right. Okay, so not seeing or hearing any citizen comments, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 9:02. All right, thank you, everybody. We're on to resolutions.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Well, I guess it's really Kelsey.
Kelsey starts off.
Losing track here today.
So first, we have a resolution of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending the City Council Rules of Procedure. Resolution number 12-156F.
Motion for the council rules of procedure.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The motion would be for the council to approve the resolution number 12-156F. And I believe I need to make a comment there that with these proposed changes that we had talked about tonight.
Correct. Yep. Do we have a second to approve resolution 12-156F as amended during the workshop?
Second.
A second from Councilmember Follier. Any comments, questions? All right, not hearing any. All in favor of approving our 12-1-56F labor of love, the council rules and procedures, please say aye.
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 Yeah, I need a hand vote from
Oh,
everyone.
I'm sorry.
1, 2. Okay, great. We have 4 out of Bill's voting twice. That was Tuesday. All right, we have motion passes 4-0, and we have updated council rules and procedures. Thanks, everybody. All right, now we're on to first read ordinances. Kelsey.
We have ordinance number 33A, an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending the ordinance creating the joint office of the city clerk treasurer, establishing duties and providing for appointment and confirmation, and removing the joint office of treasurer.
Are there any, this is just first read, but we will take comments or questions on ordinance 33A. Hearing or seeing any, we will go ahead and move on to the first read for the next one.
I have ordinance number 281, an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, establishing certain offices requiring appointment by the mayor and approval by council, an oath of office, and repealing ordinance number 7, ordinance number 32, and ordinance number 35 in their entirety.
Questions or discussion on ordinance 281 for our first read? Okay, not hearing any, we'll move on to 282.
Ordinance number 282 is an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, levying the regular property taxes for the City of Liberty Lake, Washington in Spokane County for the year commencing January 1, 2022 to provide revenue for the provision of city services as set forth in the city budget.
Comments or questions on the first read for 282? Okay, not hearing any. Next one, Kelsey, 269F.
Ordinance number 269F, an ordinance amending ordinance number 269 passed by the City Council on December 15th, 2020, entitled an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, adopting a budget for the period January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, appropriating funds and establishing salary schedules for established positions.
Okay, questions on this first read? Okay, not hearing any. We will go to second read at the next meeting. Thanks, everybody. So we're on to emergency ordinances. We have none. Now we're on to introduction of upcoming agenda items. So Jen, you want to go through those and then we'll bring that matrix up and look at the future workshop schedule.
Sure. So for November 16th, we have a 6 o'clock proposed budget workshop continuation of. At the 7 o'clock, I have written down that we've added code of ethics. Is that correct? Are we going to
Yes.
bring code of ethics
Yeah.
for 7 o'clock? Okay. And then that is all I have for November 16th.
Okay. Now,
I know there
so-
was some discussion on the unfunded
Yeah,
work.
I'm gonna get my calendar up here, so bear with me just a moment. So this is the 16th. So some thoughts that I have, Councilmember Garcia, on your question, I did not forget about it, but from before the meeting, about splitting out to have a separate discussion on the unfunded projects. So I'm looking at the schedule, and I think we tentatively had said each of our 6 PM workshops between now and the 21st would be on the budget. And I'm thinking we may need to have a special meeting, at least tentatively, on November 30th, dedicated just to the budget. And my proposal would be that as part of that special meeting, I think Lisa, jump in if I'm off track here, really concentrate heavy on the capital facilities plan, as well as those unfunded projects, and maybe have the unfunded projects discussed first, since we're only going over the budget, and then the capital facilities plan then as a whole. Lisa, does that go with your timeline? Because I know you've got some public hearings and other things on your list for the capital facilities plan.
Yes, so I will be putting out the final format of the capital facilities plan and doing SEPA notices and hearing notices on November 23rd. So we'll have that final document in hand that we can go over. We can have the discussion about both the capital facilities plan and the unfunded projects that will kind of tee you up, City Council, for making amendments to that when the time comes. You'll have your first hearing, you'll have the hearing on the first meeting in December, and you'll actually be acting on the capital facilities plan at your meeting on December 21st. So that I think that works very well in terms of teeing you up to have the conversations that you need to be able to make the decisions and any amendments that you feel are warranted at the December 21st meeting.
So how does that schedule sound to everybody? everybody with regards to, so next meeting, as I said, we'll do the budget at 6 o'clock. Then a special meeting on the 30th, if everybody's available, and we would dedicate that to focus on unfunded projects and CFP. And then further, if we need to, obviously we have the 7th for additional budget discussions, and we can always add more budget discussions to the 7 o'clock workshop as well. But I think this concentrated time will really help us get through it. How does the 30th look for everybody? Anybody object to the 30th? Say maybe 6. And let's tentatively put that on the calendar. And then what other, just a second here, for them, I will get to this to do some, were there any other proposed workshops for the 7 PMs? I don't know if there's anything.
On the 16th.
Yes, we have. But
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, for the council consideration for a workshop on the 16th, is that we all realize that on the 23rd, we will be down to 6 council members. And I would recommend that we have a workshop on the 16th, a discussion on how we move forward with that, what our intention is, and what our goal is going to be.
good idea. And I'm acknowledging that since the election will be certified, like you said, till the 23rd, we can talk about the plan, but we may not be able to do anything else besides put some dates together. So
Exactly.
yeah, if everybody's okay with that, we'll add that.
16th.
That's the 16th at 7. And Annie, hopefully, between now and the next meeting, we'll get that email out. And we'll see who we can pull together, in addition to you, for 2 other members to go through the code of ethics, and then we can just do it. It'll be a short update at 7 o'clock on the 16th. I don't know if you guys will get through it between now and then or not. But yeah, I love that idea of the subcommittee. That's perfect. All right, does anybody have anything else we need to add to 7 o'clock? And so if we need to, we can always tentatively add more budget discussions at 7 if we need to add extra time. All right, sounds good. All right, Jen, was there anything else of note that you need to add or Lisa with regards to upcoming agenda items that we just want to make sure is on our radar?
No, that's all I had, Mayor.
Lisa, anything for you?
Yes, I'm expecting that on November 16th, we'll have River Crossing 2020 edition final plat and possibly Legacy Ridge West 2nd edition final plat. We also may have an appointment for Planning Commission to replace a commissioner who has requested to step down.
Okay,
That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief, anything that you have of note for any upcoming agenda items? You're on mute. Let's see. Jandy, anything that you have of note that we need to just make sure everybody knows is coming up for the library?
No, Jen covered everything, just the Friends book sale coming up on the 19th and the 20th of this month.
Okay, well, we have, yes, we're through agenda items, so we'll open it back up for our second section of citizen comments. Again, if you want to make a comment, you'll have up to 3 minutes. Time will be on the screen. Just go ahead and send a note to Todd Henderson, who's through chat, who's managing the meeting. Any moment, I don't know how many people are left. All right, not hearing any. Todd, I'm assuming you're not seeing any. Okay, not hearing any citizen comments. We do not have an executive session. Is there any other business that the council would like to address at this time? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
All right, make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second, anybody? Second from Councilmember Foyer. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. We will see you back at our next meeting. Have a great night.
And